Hi, I'm Carlin Borisenko. In early 2020, I was the knitting Democrat who accidentally went viral on the internet for going to a Trump rally and then left the party. I became the conservative darling, was on all the shows, traveled around the country, and then realized that conservatives were no better than Democrats. If there's one thing that I've learned, it's that both political tribes are two sides of the same coin. But it wasn't all bad. On my journey, I became obsessed with understanding the woke ideology and the culture war. I broke the story of the city of Seattle doing segregated training with its employees.
How bad has this stuff become? The city of Seattle has now put out, I'm not kidding you, this is according to Dr. Carolyn Borisenko, who's an organizational psychologist. The city of Seattle asked its white employees to voluntarily spend a day off in a training about their internalized racial superiority.
I broke the story that led to the first ever federal lawsuit against critical race theory in the schools. I broke the Coke Be Less White story, one of the biggest anti-woke stories of all time. It got over 30 million views. Coca-Cola's corporate headquarters even had to change their outgoing voicemail.
Throughout the past few days, you may have seen inaccurate reporting on the content of our recently launched diversity, equity, and inclusion training program.
I exposed the schools in Burlington, Vermont for grooming middle school children live on the internet. They called me an unwoke cult leader for that. And the Vermont Human Rights Commission slandered me publicly as being a hate channel. I even got called a hero in Breitbart for exposing that the Washington Post was writing a hit piece on Christopher Rufo. I have broken story after story after story about what's going on in the public schools, from Cambridge, Massachusetts, to autistic sex education, to the Department of Education in Michigan, literally training teachers all over the state how to groom children. I wrote a book called Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. I host a podcast all about fighting back, and I'm downloading all of my knowledge to you on my Substack, carlin.substack.com. The world is a crazy place. We are literally surrounded by cults on all sides. On this show, we're going to do a deep dive into all aspects of the culture war, and I will show you the dark, dystopian underbellies on both sides. Here are the commitments I'll make to you. I will always tell you the truth. I will always bring you receipts. And if you stick with me, I promise you will see the world differently. Welcome to the cult. Please mount that like button for me and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Well, hey everyone. Happy Wednesday. Does this feel like it's like Friday to anyone else? I feel like this week is going by so slow. It might just be because it's like snowing and it's dark and it's cold. And I have fully embraced and adopted my new Unabomber look for streaming. But guys, welcome to The Cult. The Cult is a show that I stream Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. on this here YouTube channel on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, and on Rumble. And on Saturdays, we go live at 6 p.m. for Socialism Saturday, and we talk about all aspects of the culture war with a heavy emphasis on the far left because they're winning badly. They control everything. They're far more dangerous. And so that's where we usually spend most of our time. But I thought today we would do a little bit of a palate cleanser. Is everyone ready for a little palate cleanser? Look, even though I'm wearing sunglasses, I even did eye makeup for this one. Because it's just like a more relaxed kind of... I don't know why eye makeup equals more relaxed, but maybe a little bit more professional. I don't know. Can you call me Una Carlin? I don't think that's a good idea. I don't co-sign that. So guys, we're going to do a little bit of a palate cleanser today because I just feel like taking a break. And by pure coincidence, apparently, Javier Milei, today at the WEF, there were all sorts of people complaining ever since Javier got elected as the first libertarian president in the history of the world. Ever since that happened, people are like, he's a globalist shill. He's a plant. He's a Jew. Me. They've been complaining. And I'm like, can we just have a moment where we celebrate that a libertarian, and he's an anarcho-capitalist. He's an anarcho-capitalist like me. Can we just celebrate the fact that a libertarian with libertarian messaging, with unapologetically libertarian messaging, got elected president of a country? Like, can't we just take a moment? We can whine and complain about him like any other day. Can we just take a moment to just celebrate this? But no, we couldn't. We couldn't, because that's the way the internet works. We're never allowed to have nice things. We're never allowed to celebrate anything. And so when it was announced that Javier Milei was going to the World Economic Forum, of course, all the conservatives go, it's like they're a cat. And they're like, no! This is going to the World Economic Forum is like the worst betrayal that anyone can do in like the history of conservatism. And so all of the claws were out. And then apparently Javier Milei gave a speech that basically dragged the entire WEF for 20 minutes and called them all socialists. And I was like, oh, look at that. Nothing to worry about. Nothing to see here. They were all just... And now even some people apparently, and I haven't seen the speech yet, we're going to watch it together. Apparently some people are like twisting it. They're going to be like, this is what he really meant to make him a globalist. So I haven't seen the speech. Has anyone in the chat seen the speech yet? I wanted to wait to watch it together. Also, I had other stuff to do today and I couldn't watch it when it was on. Thank you, Mazdex over on Rumble for joining today. I do appreciate it. Welcome to everyone over on Rumble as well. I'm getting the Rumble chat out so I can actually see what you guys are saying. Let's see. Prometheus, watch half of it. It's pure gas. I don't know if that's good or bad, Stony Baloney. I don't know. Okay, so yeah, Stony Baloney seems to be good. Jaren saw it. We'll have to see. Yeah, I did hear there was a crazy land blessing or something going on at the WEF. I think I heard that probably from you, Kino. So we're going to watch that, but this is only like 20 minutes long. And so, of course, because it's a speech that's 20 minutes long, it will take us at least an hour to actually watch with commentary and other stuff. So, but that kind of cramps my style because like I do long streams and watching something that's only like 20 minutes long is just, it's a little bit short. And so there's something else that I've been wanting to watch for a while. And I was like, you know what? This is a good day to combine the two. This is a perfect combination of two heroes. We have Javier Milei, our current anarcho-capitalist president of Argentina. And that's one hero. And then we're going to do a throwback. Now, we've watched this on the channel before. We watched this for a Socialism Saturday a while back. But Yuri Bezmenov is someone that you can watch again and again and again and again and again and pick up new things every time. Now, for those who don't know, Yuri Bezmenov was a defector from the Soviet Union. He defected in the 80s. He was in the KGB, and he basically came to America and was like, let me tell you all the ways that the Soviet Union is subverting and destabilizing your culture. And he laid it all out. And the most famous thing that most people know him for was an interview that he gave where he laid it all out. And the interview was great. I definitely recommend that people watch it. But for my money, this video is even better. And I don't think as many people have seen this video because this is actually a class that Yuri Bezmenov gave in 1983, where he was talking about psychological subversion and controlled Western society. Basically, like it was that interview, but he did a class that was just like laying out, here is how Russia is trying to F you guys over. And so that's what I want to watch, and I want to rewatch it. I've seen it before, but it's one of those things. It's always good to do a reminder. It's always good to do a little bit of a review. And quite frankly, since the last time I watched Yuri Bezmenov, which has probably been about a year, it's like almost a year, I think, I have learned a lot. I have gotten pretty rock solid in what I believe is going on. I'm even billing myself as the modern day Yuri Bezmenov, which I'm not sure is a good idea, but I'm gonna own it for the moment because I don't think there's anyone better than me doing it. So I'm interested to see how I react to this now compared to the last time I watched it. I'm also interested to see how the audience reacts to it, what more things we pick up on, stuff like that. So that's what we're doing on the show today, guys. We're going to start off with an appetizer of Javier Milei, and then we are going to have our main event entree of Yuri Bezmenov, and it's going to be great. But before we jump into that, just a couple orders of business. Number one, please make sure you mount the like button for me. There is a shocking disparity right now between the number of people who are watching and the number of people who have mounted that like button. Guys, mounting the like button costs nothing. It helps me overcome the epic shadow ban that YouTube has my channel under by making sure YouTube actually recommends my content to people. If you are subscribed to my channel but you don't ever get notifications, try making sure you're mounting the like button. Double check, make sure you're subscribed. YouTube unsubscribes people from my channel literally every day. I get people every day. Carlin, I was unsubscribed from your channel again. I was unsubscribed from your channel again. I was like, I can't control that, man. You guys are the only ones that can control that. I stream at a very consistent time every single day. So you guys gotta own your own subscriptions, man. I don't control YouTube. So if you guys can mount the like button, subscribe, make sure your notifications are on. Exactly, Gary. Gary also says, make sure you share my stuff out. That would be really great. I would really appreciate it. Number two, and possibly even more important than any of that other stuff, please do make sure you are subscribed to my Substack, which is Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com. Because Substack, not YouTube, is actually my main content hub on the internet. It's where I post all my best content. It's where I do breakdowns of the woke left ideology in plain English where anyone can understand it. It's where I do undercover investigative journalism and tell you stories about what's going on the left that you will literally not see anywhere else. I'm the only one covering the vast majority of stories that appear on my Substack. And so that's what I'm doing over there. I'm providing unique independent journalism that tells the real story of what is going on the left, boots on the ground stuff, all existing in practical reality. No academic papers from people who've been dead for 150 years, none of that nonsense. We deal in real world stuff. So I'd appreciate it if everyone could hop over there and subscribe, at least for free. But if you want to help me out, right now I am doing a crowdfunding campaign, kind of a quasi crowdfunding campaign. I won't say it's like I'm not using a crowdfunding website or anything, but here's the deal, guys. There is, in a couple of months, a gender ideology conference at a taxpayer-funded institution that I want to go undercover at. I'm going to have to physically go there. There's no virtual option. And so what I want to do is I want to go undercover at this gender ideology conference, and it's super, 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 super woke. And I want to record what they're saying. And I want to report back to you guys what's going on. Now, the only way that I'm going to be able to get there is if you guys make the choice to fund it, because I am 100% grassroots funded. I am completely funded by you. I don't have any big donors because I don't want any obligations to any political groups or anything like that. I want my only job is to be able to tell you the truth and show you receipts so that you can decide what you think. And so I am asking people to become a supporter of the Substack today or make a one-time gift, whichever works best for you, in order to help me go undercover at this conference. Now, I'm giving people 1 month because that's when I'm going to have to start making travel plans. And essentially, so first I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to, I actually had a bunch of people make one-time gifts yesterday on my website, which is activelyunwoke.com/support. And so you can make one-time gifts to the website. You put 100. Thank you, Stony Baloney. I wasn't going to name names because I don't want to embarrass anyone, and I don't know if people want their names, but everyone knows who they are. I know who you are. I do appreciate it. Thank you, guys. I think I'm probably going to need to update the little thermometer there with Stony Baloney's donation on it because I just hadn't checked in a little while. But you can make one-time gifts of support through my Substack, which is activelyunwoke.com/support, not through my Substack, through my main website. And here's where you make the one-time gift. There you go, right there. That's just a gift through Stripe. There are also all the other options for donations and stuff like that. But the ones that are going to count towards this goal are new Substack subscriptions or gift subscriptions, donated subscriptions, whatever, and one-time gifts through my website. So how you can do it on Substack is there are lots of different options. I need about $3,000 of new memberships to be able to fund this. And that actually is very manageable, I think, for the amount of audience that I have. So if 13 people become founding members on the Substack, this goal is done. If 38 people become annual paying members on the Substack, this goal is done. If 125 people pay $8 a month and are subscribed for 3 months, then this goal is done. If you make a one-time gift through my website, you can do it in any amount you want. You can donate subscriptions, you can gift subscriptions, you can do all that. All of that is going to count towards the goal. And I mean, we're making some good progress. I'm pretty happy with things so far. So fingers crossed. We've got 1 month to hit the goal, guys. I know you can do it. Please hook me up. I promise you, I will hook you up with the best undercover stories that you're not going to see anywhere else. If you guys hook me up and send me out to this conference, and the costs go to things like airfare, hotel, food, rental car, registration for the conference, things like that, because those are just things that no matter how hard I try, I can't bring those costs down. But I can ask that if you're going to take advantage of the journalism that I do and showing you unique stories that no one else is covering, everyone can chip in for a little bit and make it happen. The conference is in March. I'm not going to say where it is. I'm not going to say the exact dates. I'm not going to say the conference, because if I said all that, it wouldn't be undercover, would it? I'm going to have to get disguises. I'm going to have to make myself look all socialist again, just like I had to do for the socialism conference. It's going to be great. Like, it's a whole rigmarole when I go undercover at something, because I actually have to make myself look different, which isn't as hard as you might think, but still. So guys, that's one thing you can do on the Substack. Now, also, I want to bring to everyone's attention that last night they released the new Black Lives Matter in Schools manual. Now, a lot of people think that Black Lives Matter is no longer being taught in schools. They think that critical race theory is no longer being taught in schools. Au contraire. Au contraire. All of it is still in schools. Yes, it's even in schools in red states. Yes, it's even in Florida. And just last night, the Black Lives Matter in Education account on Twitter sent out the brand new, updated, new and improved Black Lives Matter in Education guide. Now, you can go and download this yourself and read it yourself, but I did that work for you. I went through the whole thing last night. I read all of it. I analyzed it. I picked out all the socialist language. And let me just give you a little sneak preview of what is in this document. First of all, for everyone that's like, Carlin, if the left is trying to destroy capitalism, then why don't they ever say capitalism? Well, they do say capitalism. In fact, in the very first page of the Black Lives Matter in Education guide, they specifically say that the foundation of what they're doing is to go after anti-capitalist, or to promote, rather, their goal is to promote anti-capitalist politics. They're saying it. You just need to listen. But the one I really like is this. So later, just a couple pages later, they specifically say, we disrupt the narrow Western prescribed nuclear family structure expectation. We support each other as extended families and villages that collectively care for one another, especially our, in quotes, our children. We believe that radical care belongs in the public sphere. This is in the 2024 Black Lives Matter in Education guide that is going to be taught in schools. Now, I know that most people will say, well, Carlin, we already know that BLM wants to disrupt the nuclear family. We already knew that. Ha, 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 ha. Okay, well, you knew that in 2020. Did you know that that's still to this day being taught in schools, even though you all think you banned critical race theory because you don't talk about it anymore? Do you know that's still being taught in schools today? Do you actually even know what any of this means? Do you know that they consider your children to be your private property and they want to abolish all private property, which means they want to take your parental rights away from you? Do you know that every single parental attack on parental rights in this country is coming from this ideology? Do you know? Well, Yeah. See, this is we already knew that, Carlin. We already knew that. Can you tell us something new? If you guys already know that Black Lives Matter is literally pushing a guidebook into like every school system in this country in which they're teaching to abolish the nuclear family, then why the fuck aren't you doing anything about it? Why the fuck aren't you doing anything about it? Seriously. Seriously. It's almost like conservatives don't actually care about the things that they claim to care about. Because this is still being taught and no one's talking about it. And they're literally telling you that they intend to make your children part of the public collective because they're not your children. They're our children. They're our children. So those are just a couple little tidbits from the Black Lives Matter in Schools manual. I spent about 5 hours breaking it down painstakingly, pointing out all the socialist language, and that is available in a premium article on my Substack, which means you do have to be a subscriber to access it. But I promise you, this is like this got so much longer than I thought it was going to. I was like, man, there's a whole goddamn essay breaking down every single instance of socialist language in this entire thing. And Cindy, you are still missing the point, because my point is that they can deny this is the conservatives live in 4 years ago. I swear to God. This you're talking about 4 years ago, Cindy. I am talking about right now. Right now. This isn't a document that came out yesterday. This is not 4 years ago, conservatives. This is yesterday. So if you already knew about it and you're so smart and you know what all this means, then what the fuck are you doing about it? Oh, I forgot. You have jobs and no one else has a job. It's only you who has jobs, and so you can't do anything about it. I understand. Believe me. Anyway, for those people who want to do something about it, who want to understand what's going on right now, that is available on the Substack. Gloria says, I think the conservatives believe that the abolish the nuclear family is so outrageous that it will blow up in their faces. They don't open their eyes to see how marriage rates are down. While conservatives don't open their eyes to a lot of things, conservatives have no idea that the Black Lives Matter calls to abolish the nuclear family is not just Black Lives Matter. It is something that they're trying to implement throughout school today. All of, guys, gender ideology in school, every crazy thing you see around gender ideology in school is because they want to abolish the nuclear family. Every crazy attack you see on parental rights is because they want to abolish the nuclear family. Every crazy law you see getting passed in places like California and New York and Minnesota and Oregon, and I think they're trying to do it in Massachusetts, that says the state can come in and take your kids away if you don't give them the cross-sex hormones which they feel entitled to, is coming from this ideology. Conservatives think they know fucking everything because they watch libs of TikTok, but they really have no idea how this stuff, which they will say, we knew about this in 2020, Carolyn. We're so bored with this. We already knew about this. Can you tell us something new? None of them realize this is still in schools today. None of them believe critical race theory is still being taught in schools today because they don't actually listen nor pay attention to what's going on. And they're the ones that are going to get all their kids transitioned. It's not my problem, man. I don't have kids. My kids aren't getting trans. It's conservative kids who are getting trans because they don't understand where these ideas come from because they don't effing listen. To be honest, this is genius. Now, anyone who opposes Marxism and the communist revolution is a racist. That's exactly right. That's exactly right, Mila. Thank you for the super chat. Correct. How Black Lives Matter, and by the way, guys, this is beyond just Black Lives Matter now. This is beyond Black Lives Matter, the organization. I hope people understand this. Of course they don't. This is not just about the Black Lives Matter organization that had the corrupt founders that all bought houses with donations. This guide isn't even created by them. This guide is created by a different organization than the Black Lives Matter one that had all the corrupt founders. It is a completely different group, but they're all pushing the same thing. And they're pushing it in a way where conservatives aren't even paying attention anymore because they're like, we need that in 2020. Whatever, man. Whatever. It's their kids, not mine. Anyway, one last thing before we get started for today. As a reminder, another way you can support my work is to go over to the Unwoke Art store, which is unwokeart.com. And I have a special in the store right now because last weekend I launched the very new, very spectacular, very fabulous Socialists Are Gay design. And this is available on t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, bags, mugs, all that stuff. And you know, we're just celebrating the LGBT because I love gay people. Half of my audience are gay. All lesbians love me. All lesbians are like, the minute they see me, they're picking up their U-Haul. I swear to God, I'm like, I like dick. I'm sorry, I don't eat pussy. I like dick, I promise. But anyway, I made this design just as a joke, and then everyone told me I had to put it on a t-shirt, so I did put it on a t-shirt, and guess what? You can get all my merch with the Socialists Are Gay design for 25% off for the rest of the week. That is through Sunday. So if you want to get any of this cool swag, again, we got hoodies, we got sweatshirts, we got long sleeve shirts, we got mugs, bags, stickers, even posters. Look at that beautiful. Don't you just want that over your fireplace? On a cold Christmas afternoon. Don't you can have the glorious Socialists Are Gay print over your fireplace. All of that is 25% off right now in the Unwoke Art store, and there's lots of other cool merch too if you want to take a look. And yeah, that's all I got there. All right, guys, let's dig into the main show. And we are going to be starting off today with the epic Javier Milei smackdown at the WEF. Everyone, please, again, mount that like button for me. Let's get this party started.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Klaus.
Great honor to welcome
this guy's a
Javier
demon.
Milei, as you know, is the freely elected president of Argentina, and it's actually your first trip to a foreign country after you have been elected. First, congratulations for your election, and congratulations also to your sister, who managed your election campaign. I think you, sometimes people would say with more radical methods, but you introduce a new spirit to Argentina, making Argentina much more related to free enterprise, to entrepreneurial activities, also to bring Argentina back to the rule of law. So we have a very extraordinary person among us today. And of course, we are all eager to listen to you. And again, a very cordial welcome to the World Economic Forum.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Hoy estoy acá
Today, I'm here
para decirles que Occidente
to tell you that the Western world is in danger.
está en peligro
And it is endangered because those who are supposed to have to defend the values of the West are co-opted by a vision of the world that inexorably leads to socialism and thereby to poverty. Unfortunately, in recent decades, motivated by some well-meaning individuals willing to help others, and others motivated by the wish to belong to a privileged caste, the main leaders of the Western world have abandoned the model of freedom for different versions of what we call collectivism. We're here to tell you that collectivist experiments are never the solution solution
Fact check
to
true.
the problems that afflict the citizens of the world. Rather, they are the root cause. Do believe me, no one better placed than us, Argentines, to testify to these 2 points. When we adopted the model of freedom back in 1860, in 35 years we became a leading world power. And when we embraced collectivism over the course of the last 100 years, we saw how our citizens started to become systematically impoverished, and we dropped to spot number 140 globally. But before having the discussion, it would first be important for us to take a look at the data that demonstrate why.
Okay, I have one criticism. He needs to slow the F down and take a pause every once in a while, because I feel like I've already like there's already been like so many based things in like the first 2 minutes of this speech. And it's like I can barely follow it because it's going so fast. I'm like, I want to be able to savor this moment. He is ripping them a new one, and I want to be able to savor it.
Free enterprise capitalism is not just the only possible system to end world poverty, but also that it's the only morally desirable system to achieve this. If we look at the history of economic progress, we can see how between the year 0 and the year 1800 approximately, world per capita GDP practically remained constant throughout the whole reference period. If you look at a graph of the evolution of economic growth throughout the history of humanity, you would see a hockey stick graph, an exponential function that remained constant for 90% of the time and which was exponentially triggered starting in the 19th century. The only exception to this history of stagnation was in the late 15th century with the discovery of the American continent. But for this exception, throughout the whole period between the year 0 and the year 1800, global per capita GDP stagnated. Now, it's not just that capitalism brought about an explosion in wealth from the moment it was adopted as an economic system. But also, if you look at the data, what you will see is that growth continues to accelerate throughout the whole period. And throughout the whole period between the year 0 and the year 1800, the per capita GDP growth rate remained stable at around 0.02% annually, so almost no growth. Starting in the 19th century, with the Industrial Revolution, the compound annual growth rate was 0.66%. And at that rate, in order to double per capita GDP, you would need some 107 years. Now, if you look at the period between the year 1900 and the year 1950, the growth rate accelerated to 1.66% a year. So you no longer need 107 years to double per capita GDP, but 66. And if you take the period between 1950 and the year 2000, you will see that the growth rate was 2.1%, again the CAGR, which would mean that in only 33 years we could double the world's per capita GDP. This trend, far from stopping, remains well alive today. If we take the period between the year 2000 and 2023, the growth rate again accelerated to 3% a year, which means that we could double world per capita GDP in just 23 years. That said, when you look at per capita GDP since the...
Hang on. We have a question. Is Marxism Gnostic? No, it's not. James Lindsay goes on infinitum about this, but is it to you? No. James Lindsay is wrong. James Lindsay doesn't know what the F he's talking about. James Lindsay is an atheist who has never interacted with these spiritual ideas and is grossly misinterpreting what they actually are. And I say that as someone who's been practicing, I don't practice Gnosticism, but like spirituality in general for like 20 years. And I know this shit, and I know that James Lindsay is distorting what he is actually talking about because he doesn't understand it. And this is no shade, man. No one like spirituality, when you're getting into this belief system, is complicated. It's nuanced. It's not black and white. It's all about I'm not going to go into a whole rant on it, but it is difficult for people to understand who don't practice it, who come from more of like a Christian belief system and believe that that's what it is, because it's not the same effing thing. Marxism is not Gnosticism. And the fact that James Lindsay keeps ranting about this, like it is honestly has been one of the biggest turnoffs to me about James Lindsay in this entire goddamn thing, because he doesn't know what he's talking about and he hasn't taken the time to understand it, and he just sees something and he says, oh, this is a direct line to this. No, it's not. No. James Lindsay's wrong. Flat out. He's right about many things. But on the Gnosticism thing, James Lindsay is possibly one of the dumbest fucking people on earth, specifically with the narcissism, not narcissism, wow, Gnosticism. No. Wrong. That's all I'm going to say.
Year 1800 and until today, what you will see is that after the Industrial Revolution, global per capita GDP multiplied by over 15 times, which meant a boom in growth that lifted 90% of the global population out of poverty. We should remember that by the year 1800, about 95% of the world's population lived in extreme poverty, and that figure dropped to 5% by the year 2020, prior to the pandemic. The conclusion is obvious. Far from being the cause of our problems, free trade capitalism as an economic system is the only instrument we have to end hunger, poverty, and...
All right, guys, I'm going to ask everyone stop talking about James Lindsay and his fucking retarded view about Gnosticism, because I truly just, I don't want to get into the argument. I don't want to. It makes me really goddamn angry. It makes me angry, like, that James Lindsay can be so fucking smart and just get this one so wrong. So can we please just not talk about it, because I don't want to be pissed off. This is supposed to be a fun day. We're watching some good stuff. Stony Baloney, thank you for the super chat. Moms of Liberty thinks he's a smarty, though. Well, Moms for Liberty also endorses threesomes and like shenanigans and grossly like incompetent behaviors in Florida. And Moms for Liberty has also implemented some of the most disastrous strategies in the last couple of years in regards to dealing with the left, and they still go around saying we're winning, mama bear, like fuck Moms for Liberty, fuck the MILFs. Like, no. The world would be a much better place if the MILFs for Liberty had never been formed in the first place. I'm sorry, they have screwed so much stuff up, it's unbelievable. Rottweiler, even if we say Marxists are Gnostics for the sake of the argument, it still doesn't solve anything. A Marxist won't relent if called a Gnostic. Yeah. Marxists don't even know what Gnosticism is. Marxists, for the most part, do not practice any spirituality at all. There are some Christians, there's some in there, but like really not really. To say that they're Gnostics is just, it's retarded. It's retarded. And now we're going to stop talking about it, and we're going to focus on Javier, okay?
Extreme poverty across our planet. The empirical evidence is unquestionable. Therefore, since there is no doubt that free enterprise capitalism is superior in productive terms, the left-wing doxer has attacked capitalism, alleging matters of morality, saying, that's what the detractors claim, that it's unjust. They say that capitalism is evil because it's individualistic, and that collectivism is good because it's altruistic.
True, Javier.
Of course, with the money of others. So they therefore advocate for social justice. But this concept, which in the developed world became fashionable in recent times, in my country has been a constant in political discourse for over 80 years. The problem is that social justice is not just, and it doesn't contribute either to the general well-being. Quite on the contrary, it's an intrinsically unfair idea because it's violent.
Social justice is socialism. Equity is socialism. Every single time you see equity or social justice in your kid's school system, you have to understand that it is Marxism, and I'm not exaggerating. You cannot have equity and capitalism in the same place at the same time.
Just because the state is financed through tax, and taxes are collected coercively. Or can any one of us say that they voluntarily pay taxes, which means that the state is financed through coercion, and that the higher the tax burden, the higher the coercion, and the lower the freedom. Those who promote social justice, the advocates, start with the idea that the whole economy is a pie that can be shared differently. But that pie is not a given. It's wealth that is generated in what Israel Kirzner, for instance, calls a market discovery process. If the goods or services offered by a business are not wanted, the business will fail unless it adapts to what the market is demanding. If they make a good quality product at an attractive price, they will do well and produce more. So the market is a discovery process in which the capitalists will find the right path as they move forward. But if the state punishes capitalists when they're successful and gets in the way of the discovery process, they will destroy their incentives. And the consequence is that they will produce less, the pie will be smaller, and this will harm.
So what he's talking about, to be very, very clear, and they want to do this in America as well, is that under socialism, there will be no private businesses. So I watched an episode of Tim Pool's Culture War show a while ago, in which there was Trevor Loudon and some sort of like MAGA communist guy. Did anyone else see that or see my reaction to it? So basically this MAGA communist guy, which by the way, there is no such thing as MAGA communism. No such thing. Well, Warren, this is the first time I've seen you in my chat, so it kind of strikes me that you might just be coming here to complain about being blocked on Twitter. Now, if you actually come here and participate and are part of a community, not just coming here to complain when I block you on Twitter, maybe I'll unblock you, but I really don't like people who come into my chat and complain because I blocked them on Twitter, because if I blocked you on Twitter, you damn well did something to deserve it. So, what was I saying? What the fuck was I saying? See, I'm already distracted by my chat. What was I saying? What? Oh no! What? Okay, maybe I'll take this super chat and then it'll come back to me. Massage Chair Wellness, aka Allison, is Marxism, socialism, and communism the same thing? Are they all interchangeable? Okay, so that's a good. Oh, okay, thank you. We'll go back to the MAGA communist thing in a second. So this is a good question though. There are nuances between these things. Right? Not all socialists consider themselves to be Marxists. Not all Marxists consider themselves to be communists. But for our purposes, I've heard enough of them. Essentially, when I've been undercover at their events, I hear them say, I'm a Marxist, socialist, communist, like literally in the same sentence. They'll say it like that. As they'll say something like, as Marxist, socialist, communist, we all need to do X, Y, B, and Z. So I treat these as pretty interchangeably for our purposes. Of course, there are nuances between them. I just don't feel like getting into the weeds on it. I don't actually think most people understand the nuances between them. But because they are referring to themselves as like all three things at the same time, I'm kind of like, we can use these all interchangeably. Okay, so I was talking about that MAGA communist guy on Tim Pool. Okay, so when that MAGA communist guy was on Tim Pool's show, he was like, him and Tim got into like a back and forth where Tim was like, but what about intellectual property? What's going to happen to my business? And the MAGA communist guy would not answer the question. And the reason that he would not answer Tim's question, and Tim kept getting more and more and more pissed off, because he's like, what about intellectual property? How am I going to make money? I'm creating content. Content is intellectual property. How am I going to make money? And the MAGA communist guy wouldn't answer it because the answer is that under communism, under socialism, under what these people want to do, not Javier Milei, but the people he's talking to, Tim Pool's not going to have a business. There is no private business. There is no private enterprise. It does not exist. It does not exist. And so Tim Pool can quibble about intellectual property all he wants. The fact of the matter is that socialists want to abolish all private property. All private property. That includes your house. That includes your land. That includes your children. That includes your individual rights. That includes your business. That includes any building of that you're a landlord of. They do not want you to have any of that. People really don't understand this. They don't understand what this means. You are not allowed to own a business under socialism. You are not allowed to. That doesn't work under their system. Individualism and meritocracy are not allowed under their system. And they will never answer this question because, like, do you think that MAGA communist guy wanted to sit across from Tim Pool and be like, Tim, I want to destroy your entire business. And you'll still get to read the news and stuff, but what it's going to be, Tim, is we're going to give you the talking points that you're allowed to say, and your job is to go on TV and say those things. And if you don't say those things, you're going to the re-education gulag, or we're going to take you out back and shoot you. Like, they don't want to tell people that, but that's the reality of what they're proposing.
Society as a whole. Collectivism, by inhibiting these discovery processes and hindering the appropriation of discoveries, ends up binding the hands of entrepreneurs and prevents them from offering better goods and services at a better price. So how come that academia, international organizations, economic theory, and politics demonize an economic system that has not only lifted out of extreme poverty 90% of the world's population, but has continued to do this faster and faster. And this is morally superior and just. Thanks to free trade capitalism, it is to be seen that the world is now...
Yes, this is, sorry to keep pausing, but this is a great point from Milo that I really want to make sure people understand. When socialists say they want to control the means of production, they don't just mean machines, guys. We no longer live in a world where most people go to work in a factory and have to use these machines. Socialists aren't talking about the machines when they say they want to control the means of production. They're talking about you. They're talking about people. When socialists say they want to control the means of production, the people are the means of production. And we know this because socialists talk about a thing called social reproduction theory, which is quite literally that a social system will reproduce itself. They want to control the system that is reproducing itself. That means controlling you. They're not just talking about businesses. They're talking about people. Fountainhead Forum. Good to hear from you, Chris. The Fountainhead Forum has 30 shows about Milei and more coming. Nobody has better coverage of Milei in English. Argentina will make this right. Yeah, so I want to encourage everyone to check out the Fountainhead Forum. Chris does a great job. There's a lot of coverage of Milei. He's very into him, so that's definitely a resource that you can avail yourself of if you feel so inclined. Thanks for stopping by, Chris. Well, he's in Peru. Go get some of that street corn in Peru, Chris. I told you about that the other day. It's amazing. It's amazing. Channel 007 over on Rumble. Thank you for the Rumble rant. It's worse than that. Your body belongs to the state too. They get to decide what job you get, what vaccines you get. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So under socialism, guys, when socialists say they want to abolish all private property, they don't just mean your house and your land and your business. They mean your parental rights over your kids, because they consider kids to be the property of the collective. They also mean your individual liberties. They mean very literally your body. They don't think you own your own body. Your body belongs to the collective. Your body is a part of the Borg. Let's keep going.
Living its best moment. Never in all of mankind's or humanity's history has there been a time of more prosperity than today. This is true for all. The world of today has more freedom, is rich, is more peaceful and prosperous. And this is particularly true for countries that have more freedom and have economic freedom and respect the property rights of individuals, because countries that have more freedom are 12 times richer than those that are repressed. And the lowest decile in terms of distribution in free countries are better off than 90% of the population of repressed countries. And poverty is 25 times lower, and extreme poverty is 50 times lower. And citizens in free countries live 25% longer than citizens in repressed countries. Now, what is it that we mean when we talk about libertarianism? And let me quote the words of the greatest authority on freedom in Argentina, Professor Alberto Benegas Lidge Jr., who says that libertarianism is the unrestricted respect for the life project of others, based on the principle of non-aggression, in defense of the right to life, liberty, and property. Its fundamental institutions being private property, markets free from state intervention, free competition, the division of labor, and social cooperation, as part of which success is achieved only by serving others with goods of better quality or at a better price. In other words, capitalists, successful business people, are social benefactors who, far from appropriating the wealth of others, contribute to the general well-being. Ultimately, a successful entrepreneur is a hero. And this is the model that we are advocating for the Argentina of the future.
Hang on.
A model based on the fundamental principles
Hang
of
on,
libertarianism.
hang on. Cindy, I really wish you dropped by more, because if you dropped by more, you would know that when I'm talking about socialism, and quite frankly, when Javier Milei is talking about socialism too, we don't actually, like, the World Economic Forum people are not actually the biggest concern right now in the United States. The World Economic Forum people are not the same as the radical revolutionary socialists who are pushing all this shit in the United States. This is not to say that all this stuff isn't true, but I really just want to make sure people know that even though we're watching a WEF speech today, in the United States, the people pushing critical race theory, the people pushing gender ideology, the people trying to take away your parental rights, all of that are not WEF. No, wrong. These are completely, this is again, conservatives. Your influencers fucking suck, and they have not informed you. The people that I am talking about, and people who watch my channel regularly know this. Cindy doesn't watch my channel regularly. That's fine. No one has to. But like the radical revolutionary socialists in the United States, the ones pushing critical race theory, the ones pushing gender ideology, the ones that want to take away your business, the ones that want to take away your rights, they are not the WEF. Now, it's fine to watch Javier Milei ream the WEF a new one. That's just good entertainment, yo. But the WEF are Malthusians. It is a completely different group. The radical revolutionary socialists in America do not like the WEF at all. Not at all. They're not the same group.
The defense of life, of freedom, and of property. Now, if free enterprise capitalism and economic freedom have proven to be extraordinary instruments to end poverty in the world, and we are now at the best time in the history of humanity, it is worth asking why I say that the West is endangered. And I say this precisely because in those of our countries that should defend the values of the free market, private property, and the other institutions of libertarianism, sectors of the political and economic establishment, some due to mistakes in their theoretical framework and others due to a greed for power are undermining the foundations of libertarianism, opening up the doors to socialism and potentially condemning us to poverty, misery, and stagnation. It should never be forgotten that socialism is always and everywhere an impoverishing phenomenon that has failed in all countries where it's been tried out. It's been a failure economically, socially, culturally, and it also murdered over 100 million human beings. The essential problem in the West today is not just that we need to come to grips with those who, even after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the overwhelming empirical evidence, continue to advocate for impoverishing.
Elena says, this guy is turning me on, not gonna lie. I would totally fuck Javier Milei. I really would. I don't care. I think I'm so turned on by this guy. It's not even funny. And I'm not even saying that in like I really am. Like it's true. I know he has a weird haircut and he looks like he's from the 70s and he's like, but I mean, come on. Yo. And I bet he's great in bed too. I bet he has I bet this guy's dick is giant. I totally would absolutely. Yeah, I bet. Yeah, it would be. Yeah, Javier Milei's hot. I'm not even lying.
socialism. But there's also our own leaders, thinkers, and academics who are relying on a misguided theoretical framework, undermine the fundamentals of the system that has given us the greatest expansion of wealth and prosperity in our history. The theoretical framework to which I refer is that
One
of
can only
neoclassical
hope.
economic theory,
One
which
can
designs a
only
set of
hope.
instruments that unwillingly or without meaning to ends up serving the intervention by the state, socialism, and social degradation. The problem with neoclassicals is that the model they fell in love with does not map reality, so they put down their mistakes to supposed market failures rather than reviewing the premises of the model. On the pretext of a supposed market failure, regulations are introduced which only create distortions in the price system, prevent economic calculus, and therefore also prevent saving, investment, and growth. This problem lies mainly in the fact that not even supposedly libertarian economists understand what the market is, because if they did understand, it would quickly be seen that it's impossible for there to be something along the lines of market failures. The market is not
Over on Rumble, thank you for the Rumble rant, channel 007. Ladies making me blush. I love that guy too, but in terms of policy and intellect, you know what? You can love him for different reasons. That's okay. I love him for his policy and intellect too, but damn.
a mere graph describing a curve of supply and demand. The market is a mechanism for social cooperation where you voluntarily exchange ownership rights. Therefore, based on this definition, talking about a market failure is an oxymoron. There are no market failures. If transactions are voluntary, the only context in which there can be a market failure is if there is coercion. And the only one that is able to coerce generally is the state, which holds a monopoly on violence. Consequently, if someone considers that there is a market failure, I would suggest that they check to see if the state intervention involved. And if they find that that's not the case, I would suggest that they check again, because obviously there's a mistake. Market failures do not exist. An example of these so-called market failures described by the neoclassicals are the concentrated structures of the economy. However, without increasing returns
Hang on. I am well aware of who they are. Stop spamming my chat. I am well aware of what they are.
Scale functions, whose counterpart are the concentrated structures of the economy, we couldn't possibly explain economic growth since the year 1800 until today. Isn't this interesting? Since the year 1800 onwards, with population multiplying by 8 or 9 times, per capita GDP grown by over 15 times. So there are growing returns, which took extreme poverty from 95% to 5%. However, the presence of growing returns involves concentrated structures, what we would call a monopoly. How come then that something that has generated so much well-being for the neoclassical theory is a market failure? Neoclassical economists think outside of the box. When the model fails, you shouldn't get angry with reality, but rather with the model and change it. The dilemma faced by the neoclassical model is that they say they wish to perfect the functioning of the market by attacking what they consider to be failures. But in so doing, they don't just open up the doors to socialism, but also go against economic growth. An example, regulating monopolies, destroying their profits and destroying growing returns automatically would destroy economic growth. In other words, whenever you want to correct a supposed market failure inexorably, as a result of not knowing what the market is, or as a result of having fallen in love with a failed model, you are opening up the doors to socialism and condemning people to poverty. However, faced with the theoretical demonstration that state intervention is harmful, and the empirical evidence that it has failed couldn't have been otherwise. The solution to be proposed by collectivists is not greater freedom, but rather greater regulation, which creates a downward spiral of regulations until we're all poorer, and the life of all of us depends on a bureaucrat sitting in a luxury office. Given the dismal failure of collectivist models and the undeniable advances in the free world, socialists were forced to change their agenda. They left behind the class struggle based on the economic system and replaced this with other supposed social conflicts which are just as harmful to life as a community and to economic growth. The first of these new battles was the ridiculous and unnatural fight between man and woman. Libertarianism already provides for equality of these sexes. The cornerstone of our creed says that all humans are created equal, that we all have the same unalienable rights.
Does Javier Milei know that the goal of the socialist left is to abolish the gender binary? If Javier Milei knows and expresses something to that effect in this speech, I'm going to be really, really impressed, because most people really don't understand that one of the goals of the socialist left is to abolish the gender binary, because they believe that the gender binary was created by capitalism and it supports the nuclear family, and the nuclear family upholds capitalism. And the only way to get rid of capitalism is to get rid of the nuclear family. And they do that by attacking the gender binary, which is what gender ideology is. Because the goal of the socialist left is to abolish all gender, not just abolish men, not just abolish women, abolish all gender. And so if Javier Milei knows that, I'm going to be really impressed.
Granted by the Creator, including life, freedom, and ownership. All that this radical feminism agenda has led to is greater state intervention to hinder the economic process, giving a job to bureaucrats who have not contributed anything to society. Examples, ministries of women or international organizations devoted to promoting this agenda. Another conflict presented by socialists is that of humans against nature, claiming that we human beings damage the planet, which should be protected at all costs, even going as far as advocating for population control mechanisms or the bloody abortion agenda. Unfortunately, these...
He went to the WEF and reamed them about their population control. By the way, radical revolutionary socialists in the United States don't do the population control stuff. They don't talk about the degrowth stuff. It's very rare. This is one of the defining things when you know the difference between the WEF and the radical revolutionary socialists, because the socialists don't care about population control at all. They never talk about it, but the WEF does. And like, my God, this guy's got such balls. He went to the fucking WEF and was like, fuck you with your degrowth agenda.
Harmful ideas have taken a strong hold in our society. Neo-Marxists have managed to co-opt the common sense of the Western world, and this they have achieved by appropriating the media, culture, universities, and also international organizations. The latter case is the most serious one, probably, because these are institutions that have enormous influence on political and economic decisions of the countries that make up the multilateral organizations. Fortunately, there's more and more of us who are daring to make our voices heard, because we see that if we don't truly and decisively fight against these ideas, the only possible fate is for us to have increasing levels of state regulation, socialism, poverty, and less freedom, and therefore will be having worse standards of living. The West has unfortunately already started to go along this path. I know to many it may sound ridiculous to suggest that the West has turned to socialism, but it's only ridiculous if you only limit yourself to the traditional economic definition of socialism, which says that it's an economic system where the state owns the means of production. This definition, in my view, should be updated in the light of current circumstances. Today, states don't need to directly control the means of production to control every aspect of the lives of individuals. With tools such as printing money debt, subsidies, controlling the interest rate, price controls, and regulations to correct the so-called market failures. They can control the lives and fates of millions of individuals. This is how we come to the point where, by using different names or guises, a good deal of the generally accepted political offers in most Western countries are collectivist variants, whether they proclaim to be openly communists, fascists, Nazis, socialists, social democrats, national socialists, Democrat Christians, Christian Democrats, neo-Keynesians, progressive, populist, nationalists, or globalists. At bottom, there are no major differences. They all say that the state should steer all aspects of the lives of individuals. They all defend a model contrary to that one which led humanity to the most spectacular progress in its history. We have come here today to invite the rest of the countries in the Western world to get back on the path of prosperity, economic freedom, limited government, and unlimited respect for private property are essential elements for economic growth.
True.
The impoverishment produced by collectivism is no fantasy, nor is it an inescapable fate. But it's a reality that we Argentines know very well. We have lived through this. We have been through this. Because as I said earlier, ever since we decided to abandon the model of freedom that had made us rich, we have been caught up in a downward spiral, as part of which we are poorer and poorer day by day. So this is something we have lived through, and we are here to warn you about what can happen if the countries in the Western world that became rich through the model of freedom stay on this path of servitude. The case of Argentina is an empirical demonstration that no matter how rich you may be, or how much you may have in terms of natural resources, or how skilled your population may be, or educated, or how many bars of gold you may have in the central bank, if measures are adopted that hinder the free functioning of markets, free competition, free price systems, if you hinder trade, if you attack private property, the only possible fate is poverty. Therefore, in concluding, I would like to leave a message for all business people here and for those who are not here in person but are following from around the world. Do not be intimidated either by the political class or by parasites who live off the state. Do not surrender to a political class that only wants to stay in power and retain its privileges. You are social benefactors. You're heroes. You're the creators of the most extraordinary period of prosperity we've ever seen. Let no one tell you that your ambition is immoral. If you make money, it's because you offer a better product at a better price, thereby contributing to general well-being. Do not surrender to the advance of the state. The state is not the solution. The state is the problem itself. You are the true protagonists of this story. And rest assured that as from today, Argentina is your staunch, unconditional ally. Thank you very much, and long live freedom. Damn it.
Look at that! They don't know what to do! I wanted a longer shot of the crowd. Oh my god, that was amazing. That was great. That was great. Is that it, basically? Yep, that's it. That's it. All right, guys. What did we think of Javier's speech? Let me know in the chat what you thought. That was fucking great. Long live fucking freedom. I love it. 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 That was amazing. Now would be a good time to tell you guys, actually, if you were inspired by that speech. Hang on. You guys remember, right, that I have Javier Milei merch in my merch store. We've got the Javier Milei merch. Here we go. I made this on the day he was elected president of Argentina. It looks great. You can get on t-shirts, sweatshirts, all that good stuff. Viva la libertad carajo, which means long live fucking freedom. And you can find all that in the Unwoke art store if you feel so inclined to show your love and also support my work, which is pretty great. Rottweiler says, we should see if Marxists make rebuttals of what Milei is saying here. It would be an informative stream because you can bet they are melting down. That's a really good point, Rottweiler. Let me know if you find anything that's like a Marxist rebuttal to what Milei said, because that would actually be pretty great. I would definitely watch that. Yes, Argentina is the new libertarian homeland. Indeed. Indeed. All right. Well, that was our first thing, guys, and I think that went pretty well. Everyone's feeling good. Everyone's feeling fired up. That was pretty awesome. Again, my only complaint really was the form. My only complaint was that I didn't want him to talk so fast, and the translator was talking so fast, and I felt like it was like a tour de force the whole time. Oh God, wouldn't that be great if Midwestern Marx covered it? Can someone please suggest that to them? Can someone please pretend to be a Marxist and go tell Midwestern Marx to cover that, to talk about that and all the reasons that he's wrong? I would effing love that. That would be the best. That would be awesome. All right, we are moving into the second part of... Hang on. What the fuck just happened to my sound? Hang on. I can't hear myself. Oh, it's back. It's my headphones. That you guys probably could hear me all along, but I couldn't. My sound just cut out. I was like, I can't hear myself anymore. What's happening? All right. So now we're heading into the second half of our presentation, which is we're going to switch gears and we're going to do a throwback and we're going to watch some Yuri Bezmenov. So how many people, is there anyone in the chat that has never watched Yuri Bezmenov before? Let me know in the chat. And this is on Rumble too. Shout out to everyone joining me on Rumble. Please make sure you subscribe to my channel, guys, on Rumble and on YouTube, just in case. That'd be pretty great. Has anyone in the chat ever watched or not seen Yuri Bezmenov? Liquid Marble says, I've never watched him before. Maldi says, never heard of him before. Kansas Mama hasn't. Tinge hasn't. Guys, you're going to love this. Honestly. You are going to love this. So Yuri Bezmenov is, and I said this at the beginning, but I'll just repeat again because new people have joined. Yuri Bezmenov is... The fuck? Hang on. Let me just check something. Okay, we're just being ridiculous. Yuri Bezmenov was a Soviet defector in the 80s who came to the United States and was like, I'm going to teach you all the ways in which the USSR is subverting your government. So most people who have seen Yuri Bezmenov have seen him from a TV interview he did, which is great. It's awesome. You should all watch it. But this is the video I prefer of Yuri Bezmenov because he's actually teaching a class. And I think this was in 1983. Let's see. Yuri Bezmenov, alias Tomas Schumann, the Soviet KGB defector, explains in detail his scheme for the KGB process of subversion and takeover of targeted societies at a lecture in Los Angeles in 1983. Yuri Bezmenov was a former KGB propagandist who was assigned to New Delhi, India, and defected to the West in 1970. Bezmenov explains his background, some of his training, and exactly how Soviet propaganda is spread in other countries in order to subvert their teachers, politicians, and other policy markers in a mindset receptive to Soviet ideology. He explains in detail the goal of Soviet propaganda as total subversion of another country and the 4-step formula in achieving that goal. As a reminder, I created my 4 goals of the woke left before I had ever watched any of this. And I think and so we're gonna be doing a little bit of investigating, and I want to compare my 4 goals of the woke left, which, as a reminder, are gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, attack capitalism, usher in their Marxist utopia. That is always what the left is doing. They are always trying to accomplish one or more of those 4 goals. And let's see how that aligns with Yuri Bezmenov's. And I already know kind of the answer to this, which is funny because destabilization is one of his goals as well. And I always thought that was funny because I came up with mine separately than him, which is good because it means we're seeing the same thing. It's always nice when you end up agreeing with smart people. And so I guess let's just get this started, guys. This is about an hour long. I think we're really going to enjoy it. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know your notes in the chat, and I will display them on the screen and we'll talk about it. And please make sure you do mount the like button. There is still a gross disparity between the number of people watching right now and the number of people who have mounted the like button. So that would be really great. I would appreciate it. Let's get started.
Subversion is the term, if you look in a dictionary or criminal code to that matter, usually is explained as a part of activity to destroy things like religion, government system, political, economical system of a country. And usually it's linked to espionage and such romantic things as blowing up bridges, sidetracking trains, cloak and dagger activity in Hollywood style. What I'm going to talk about now has absolutely nothing to do with the cliche of espionage or KGB activity of collecting information. So the greatest mistake or misconception, I think, is that whenever we are talking about KGB, for some strange reason, starting from Hollywood movie makers to professors of political.
Sunspot says, Carlin, you mentioned before how you research without bias or influence, similar to hoping you come to similar conclusions to others. You were talking about James Lindsay, I think. Well, I stopped listening to James Lindsay about 3 years ago because I didn't want to be influenced by him. I come to the same conclusions as him sometimes. The Gnostic stuff, though, the Gnostic stuff is completely wrong. James Lindsay is completely wrong about that. But more or less, I do think we come to the same conclusions. The problem I have with James Lindsay is that he downright fucking refuses to explain to his audience that the number one enemy of the woke left is capitalism, which they define as private property. He refuses to explain that whiteness is a reference to systemic racism, which is a reference to capitalism. He refuses to do this because he makes his money from conservatives. And if he tries to tell them whiteness isn't about your skin color, whiteness is about the system of capitalism, he's going to piss all them off and they're going to stop paying him money. So this is my favorite too. Thank you, Tayton. Appreciate it.
Science and quote-unquote experts on Soviet affairs, or Kremlinologists as they call themselves, they think that the most desirable thing for Andropov and the whole KGB is to steal blueprints of some supersonic jet, bring it back to Soviet Union and sell it to the Soviet military-industrial complex. It's only partly true. If we take the whole time, money, and manpower that the Soviet Union and KGB in particular spends outside of USSR border, we will discover, of course there are no official statistics unlike with CIA or FBI, that the espionage as such occupies only 10 to 15% of money, time, and manpower. 15% of the activity of KGB. The rest, 85%, is always subversion. And unlike a dictionary of English, Oxford Dictionary, subversion in Soviet terminology means always a destructive, aggressive activity aimed to destroy the country, nation, or geographical area of your enemy. So there's no romantics in there, absolutely. No blowing up bridges, no microfilms in Coca-Cola cans, nothing of that sort. No James Bond nonsense. It's most of this activity is overt, legitimate, and easily observable if you give yourself time and trust.
So I want to emphasize what he just said, because that was really important. Most of the behavior to subvert the United States that the Soviet Union was engaging in was observable, and it was legitimate. It was legitimate. It wasn't like he may be using the quote, like the term subversive, but it wasn't subversive in that it wasn't illegal. They were doing things that were done right out in the open that anyone could see. And I feel like that's the same thing with the socialists today, because everything they're doing is right out in the open. This is why we can actively watch them. This is why we can track them. This is why we can spend so many hours every single week watching all their videos, because they're literally doing it. I almost just dropped my best slime into my coffee that's sitting here. Thankfully, I didn't. We can watch them doing it because what they're doing is all legitimate and legal. Hang on, let's just listen to that again.
It's most of this activity is overt, legitimate, and easily observable if you give yourself time and trouble to observe it. But according to the law and law enforcement systems of the Western civilization, it's not a crime. Exactly because of misconception, manipulation of terms. We think that subverter is a person who is going to blow up our beautiful bridges. No, subverter is a student who comes for exchange, a diplomat, an actor, an artist, a journalist like myself was 10 years ago. Now, subversion is an activity which is a two-way traffic. You cannot subvert an enemy which doesn't want to be subverted. If you know history of Japan, for example.
See, we want to be subverted.
Before 20th century,
That's
Japan was a closed society. The moment a foreign boat comes to the shores of Japan, the Imperial Japanese Army politely tell them to get lost. And if American salesman comes to the shore of Japan, let's say 60 or 70 years from now back, and says, oh, I have a very beautiful vacuum cleaner for you, you know, with the good financing, he says, please leave us, we don't need your vacuum cleaner. If they don't leave, they shoot them to preserve their culture, ideology, traditions, values intact. You were not able to subvert Japan. You cannot subvert Soviet Union because the borders are closed. The media is censored by the government. The population is controlled by the KGB and internal police. With all the beautiful glossy pictures of Time magazine and Magazine America, which is published by the American embassy in Moscow, you cannot subvert Soviet citizens because the magazine never reaches Soviet citizens. It's collected from the newsstands and thrown to garbage can. Subversion can be only successful when the initiator, the actor, the agent of subversion has a responsive target. It's a two-way traffic. United States is a receptive target of subversion. There is no response similar to that one from United States to the Soviet Union. It stops halfway somewhere. It never reaches here. The theory of subversion goes all the way back 2,500 years ago. The first human being who formulated the tactics of subversion was a Chinese philosopher by the name of Sun Tzu. 2,500 years BC.
Well, hang on.
Advisor for several.
Hang on. Chad is saying, and we're going back to the conversation earlier about that conversation that Tim Pool had with that MAGA communist asshole, where the MAGA communist guy was trying to explain to Tim that intellectual property is not going to exist in his future. And Tim was like, but how will I make money? How will I have a business? My whole business is created on content. And what Tim wasn't understanding is his business isn't going to exist. But what they will allow him to do when the Marxist utopia inevitably wins is they're going to allow Tim Pool to keep talking about the news on the internet or on TV or whatever he wants to do, because Tim Pool's really popular. And so what they're going to do is they're going to use him, and they're going to be like, Tim, you get here's what you get, Tim. You don't get to keep your business because there are no private businesses under socialism. None. You belong to us. Your business belongs to us. Your ideas belong to us. Everything belongs to us. But because you're famous, Tim, here's what we're going to do for you. We're going to let you keep your houses, and we're going to make sure that you have all the food you need, and we're going to make sure you have women, and we're going to make sure you have all the finer things in life. We're going to keep you in a nice style which you become accustomed, and in exchange for that, you are going to read the talking points that we give you on your show every single day, and you're going to have the guests that we tell you to have on your show every single day. And Tim, you better not step out of line, because you're a cog in the machine now, so you're easily replaceable. If you decide to go off the script that we give you because you're feeling a little spunky someday, if you go off the script that we give you, like, the best case scenario is you're going to the re-education gulag, and you're going to have everything taken away from you. And then once you're done in the re-education gulag, you're going to the fucking salt mines. The worst case scenario is that we're going to take you out back and shoot you. And then we're just going to replace you with someone else, and everyone's going to forget about you in a week. That's what's going to happen to Tim Pool in the MAGA communist utopia, because of course there's no such thing as fucking MAGA communism. That's just made up nonsense. All communists want to abolish all private property. That includes your business, that includes your land, that includes your houses, that includes your children. They don't want parental rights, because that means children are owned by their parents. Children can't be owned by their parents because they have to be owned by the collective. That means all your ideas. That means your individual liberties, everything. Your intellectual property too, Tim. No business. No business allowed. He'll learn it someday. Probably when it's too late. Did I miss a super chat or anything? No, I didn't.
Imperial courts in ancient China. And he said, after long meditation, that to implement state policy in a warlike manner, it's the most counterproductive, barbaric, and inefficient to fight on a battlefield. You know that war is continuation of state policy, right? So if you want successfully to implement your state policy and you start fighting, this is the most idiotic way to do it. The highest art of warfare is not to fight at all.
True.
But to subvert anything of value in the country of your enemy. Until such time that the perception of...
That's a really, really good point. So what he said is the highest art of warfare is not to fight at all, but rather to subvert. That's so important, because conservatives think that socialists or Marxists are the people out protesting in the streets, acting crazy and firebombing shit and like yelling at people, and they all have the crazy hair and all this stuff. Those aren't the real people that you need to worry about. Those are just the distraction. They're a distraction. The people you see protesting with the crazy pink hair, yelling and acting a fool, those are the magician's assistant. They're not the magician. The magician has a quiet government job somewhere, or a quiet professorship somewhere where they're teaching people. They're people that you have never heard of. They're people that you will never see. They run around doing lectures and conferences and classes and all this stuff all over the country, all over the world. Many of them come from academia. They're academics. They're publishers. They're teachers. That's who they are. They're quiet. They're not fighting. You will never see them on the evening news yelling. They're not doing that. They are subverting. They are in the institutions passing laws and policies that you don't know about until it's too late, that slowly pushes the entire country left. That's how they're subverting us. You never pay attention to the loud stuff, guys. The loud stuff is always intended to distract you. The loud stuff is the sparkly magician's assistant twirling around on the stage over here, while the magician is doing the real trick over here, but you're not paying attention to the magician doing the real trick over here, because you're paying attention to the loud stuff, which is the protesters and the hair and the screaming and the reeing and the crying, and that's what you pay attention. And the TikTok videos and libs of TikTok is the fucking magician's assistant, guys. it's not the real magic trick. The real magic trick is over here, and you never learn about it because you're too distracted by the goddamn magician's assistant. Does everyone understand? Let's listen again.
The highest art of warfare is not to fight at all, but to subvert anything of value in the country of your enemy, until such time that the perception of reality of your enemy is screwed up to such an extent that he does not perceive you as an enemy.
Ding!
And that your system, your civilization, and your ambitions look to your enemy as an alternative, if not desirable, then at least feasible. Better red than dead. That's the ultimate purpose, the final stage of subversion, after which you can simply take your enemy without a single shot being fired, if the subversion is successful. This is basically what subversion is. As you see, not a single mentioning of blowing up bridges. Of course, Sun Tzu didn't know about blowing up bridges. Maybe there were not that many bridges at that time. But the basics of subversion is being taught to every student of KGB school in USSR and to officers of military academies. I'm not sure if the same author is included in the list of reading for American officers, to say nothing about ordinary students of political science. I had difficulty to find the translation of Sun Tzu in the library of a university in Toronto and later on here in Los Angeles. But it's a book which is not available. It is forced to every student in USSR. Every student who is taught to be dealing further in his future career with foreigners. What subversion is? Basically, it consists of 4 periods, time-wise. If we start from here and go this way, time, right? This is the beginning point. The first stage of subversion is the process which is called, basically, demoralization. It says for itself what it is. It takes from say 15 to 20 years to demoralize a society. Why 15 or 20 years? This is the time sufficient to educate one generation of students or children. One generation. One life.
Let me lay it out for you guys. I've put a timeline out there that I think we're on for the Marxist takeover of America, and I'm deadly serious about this. I think there is a timeline that we can ascertain right now for what is happening, and it's all based on my 4 goals of the woke left. And I'm going to say those goals again for people who are new: gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, attack capitalism, usher in their Marxist utopia. That is the progression that we're on. No. Not 2030. No, wrong. It is not 2030. I know that's conservatives' favorite year, but it's not what it is. So that is what they're trying to do at all times, is meet one or more of those 4 goals. Gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, attack capitalism, usher in their Marxist utopia. But that is also the progression. So now socialists will take any of those goals at any time, but they tend to be more focused on one of those goals over all other goals during certain time periods. Gaining as much power as possible started in the 30s when the Frankfurt School came to America and set up shop at Columbia University. And from that point forward started the long march through the institutions, where they just started working their way up into the institutions to get institutional power to take over the colleges, to take over the K through 12 schools, to take over the government, to take over media, to take over entertainment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That stage lasted until 2009, roughly. I'm going to tell you why I say 2009. A couple things were happening then. Number one thing that happened, so that's like a 70-year roughly 70 years for stage number one, okay? Of just like, of getting their army out there and getting everyone in the positions that they needed them to be in. It's like the development of a good chess game, right? You like, the first thing you do is you develop the chessboard to get all your pieces in the position that you need them. And then you attack. Okay. So when I say 2009, a couple things happened. Number one, Barack Obama got elected president in November 2008. Now, you get a black man elected president, you have very literally gained the most powerful office in the country. Like, that's kind of a good that. And other things that were happening was Occupy Wall Street happened, the market crashed. So you had this big like populist uprising. Another thing you had happen was the New York Times and the Washington Post started publishing all these stories about racism, but they weren't talking about the color of your skin. They were talking about systemic racism. Systemic. The system that perpetuates racism. The system that perpetuates racism is capitalism. That's what they believe. Private property ownership perpetuates systemic inequities from slavery. And by the way, they also believe that slavery caused racism in the first place. Capitalism caused slavery, which caused systemic racism in the first place. So you had all these events that started coming together around 2009. Now, I'm going to tell you one more thing that happened around that time period that a lot of people don't know about. And the only reason I know about this is I have spent an inordinate amount of hours going through school information for different projects that I've been doing. I go through primary source school documentation. Do you want to know what happened around 2008, 2009, 2010? These equity departments started popping up in school districts around the country. That's when they started pushing equity into the schools in a formalized way where they actually started creating positions. The director of equity. School districts all over the country, they started creating equity plans. You can go back and you can find these documents. And it started like really being formalized in public schools in 2008, 2009, 2010. So that was the turning point, guys. That was the turning point. Ever since 2008, 2009, 2010, almost every public school student in America has been indoctrinated with these equity programs that exist in every public school district in America. Everyone, even in red states. Even in red cities. I don't care if you live in the smallest town in the reddest state in the country. I promise you that if you tell me what school district you're in, I can go on that website and within 15 minutes, I can find their fucking equity department. They all have them. And your kids have been learning from them literally their entire time they've been in school. So what does that mean? It takes 12 to 16 years to graduate a class of students, right? Because you got 12 years for like primary and secondary. If you add 4 years of college on top of that, which most of them are going to college, you've got 16 years. So let's just say 12 to 16 years. We say that every single public school student in the country has been educated in a system seeped in equity, which is Marxism. Every time you hear equity, you need to hear Marxism. That's been going on since 2009, roughly. So 9 plus 12 is 2021. 9 plus 16 is 2025. Right now, we are graduating the first classes in America that have been taught entirely in equity. Every single part of their school education from the time they were in kindergarten had equity seeped throughout it. They don't know any differently. They don't know a different system. I graduated from high school in 1999. I know that dates me. I know I'm old, whatever. I didn't have any of this shit in school. And I think a lot of people who graduated, like, you know, in the 90s or in the 2000s, we think we understand what is being taught in public schools, but we have no idea. The education that I had in school bears no resemblance to what's going on in schools today. The education that you had in schools bears no resemblance to what's going on in schools today. Because if you graduated before 2000 or before 2009, you don't know what's being taught. You really, really don't. But everyone who's graduated after that does. So now we're hitting that turning point again. We're hitting that turning point that he was talking about. Let's just round it up to say 20 years. It took 70 years to go from gain as much power as possible to destabilize the system. It took 20 years to go from destabilize the system to the next phase, which is what we're going to start experiencing very, very soon. So you have these entire classes of students that the only thing they've ever known is equity. They're graduating and going into the real world. They're getting jobs in organizations. The next stage is attack capitalism. What do you think's going to happen? We're going to start seeing more and more and more and more attacks on capitalism, because capitalism is the number one enemy of the left. That every destabilization exercise that you see is designed explicitly to be an attack on capitalism, because they blame capitalism for all the destabilization. But now, and it's not as though they haven't been attacking capitalism. We see them attack capitalism all the time. But if you thought it was getting bad yet, you ain't seen nothing yet. Because now they're going to go into like a good 10 to 15 year period where all they're doing is attacking capitalism, attacking capitalism, attacking capitalism. And conservatives are completely goddamn unprepared for this, because they think this is all about skin color when it has nothing to do with skin color. Has nothing to do with it at all. And so everyone's going to be really surprised when all of a sudden they start taking away our property rights and they start taking away our businesses and they start effing every part of our capitalist system up to make it more untenable. And then and a lot of people are going to start experiencing a lot more pain. They're going to go into these businesses and they're going to be purposely fucking things up, specifically to say, look at all these capitalist businesses. Aren't they failing us? Aren't they causing us a lot of pain? Aren't they making our life worse? Do you know what the problem is? The problem is capitalism. You know what? We should replace capitalism with Marxism. How'd you like Marxism? You won't need to pay for anything under Marxism. You won't need to pay for your house because we're going to pay for your house. You won't need to pay for your education. We're going to do that. You won't need to pay for your healthcare because universal healthcare, baby, free healthcare for everyone. You won't need to worry about anything. We're even going to provide you your food. We're going to give you 2,000 calories a day of rations that you're going to get in the communal kitchen, and we're just going to take care of all of it. You don't have to worry about it anymore. We're getting rid of capitalism. Capitalism sucks, caused all these problems. We're going to do socialism now, and we're going to take care of everything, and you're never going to have to worry about anything again. And all it costs is your individual rights, because that's private property. We don't have private property anymore. And all you need to do is just agree to this and go along with it. And if you agree, then we're going to give you an okay job. Like, we're not going to send you to the salt mines. You'll probably have to be out in a field for a couple hours a day at best. And then with all the rest of the time that you're going to have, because remember, you don't have to work a job because we're going to give you everything you need. Then you get to be artists and you get to play video games and you get to do whatever you want in the world. Doesn't that sound great? Everything's free. That's what we're going to be. That's what we're walking into right now. The next 10 to 15 years is going to be a constant and perpetual attack on capitalism. And what I think is going to happen, and the timeline that I have, is that by 2050, 2050, we are in the Marxist utopia. Because the stages keep getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and they're getting better at it, and they're so far ahead now because no one cares enough to fight back against them. By 2050, we're in the Marxist utopia. And I think that timeline is real. I think that's happening around us right now. And because everyone is so fucking focused on race and things that don't matter, no one's even seeing it happening right in front of us right now. We've got Channel 007. Thank you for the Rumble rants over on Rumble. Channel 007 says, you'll see shortages and declines in quality of goods. Yes, you will, because that's how they're going to attack capitalism. Nationalize everything, and then all competent people flee the country. Poof, dystopia. Exactly. That is exactly and precisely what's going to happen. I think I also had another super chat from Jenny's getting inky with it. Thank you, Jenny. Antifa, etc., are the ones who get sent to the countryside to starve, like in China. They aren't the ones writing the policies. They're the ones setting the precedent that makes the policies necessary. That's exactly right. Antifa are not the ones that are doing this. Antifa are the foot soldiers. Antifa are the mentally retarded foot soldiers that just want community and just want to feel valued as human beings, because most of them are really socially awkward. They're the foot soldiers. They're not the generals. Tayton, I guess gun legislation will let us know how close we are, because we all know those are going to be the first to go. Oh yeah. You guys better hang on to your guns for dear fucking life. That's for sure. Daft, we don't do this shit here. I have 2 rules in my chat. Number 1 is don't be a dick. Right now, you're being a dick. You will not insult me. You will not insult people in the chat. I do not allow shit posting here. We keep it nice for everyone. Number 2 is no whining. So if you start whining about the fact that I just told you to stop insulting people in my chat, we're just going to ban you, and we don't have to deal with you anymore after that. So rein it in, bro. Rein it in.
Time span of a person, a human being, which is dedicated to study, to shaping up the outlook, ideology, personality. No more, no less. Usually it takes from 15 to 20 years. What it includes? It includes...
Hang on, one more Rumble rant over on from Channel 007. Sorry about the interruption. Antifa are useful idiots, but who are the generals? Follow the money. No. So what Channel 007 is saying, it's George Soros. It's George Soros. Soros is pulling this. No, guys. George Soros is not the leader of this. George Soros is not funding this. That is conservative bullshit. The leaders on the left are the academics, the authors, and the activists. That's who the leaders of the left are. The academics, the authors, and the activists. And we're compiling a list of them right now. Yeah, I'm making a fucking list. We're doing this on my Unwoke wiki. We are compiling a list and a database of every real, not conservative pretend bullshit, every real socialist activist in the country. We're compiling a database of organizations they work for, of schools they work for, of things they're doing there. That's on unwoke.wiki, or you can also get to it by unwokewiki.com. But no, this is not a Soros thing, guys. That's not real. That's the magician's assistant, conservative. Soros is the magician's assistant. We need you to look over here at the magician. We're talking about the magician. Stop getting distracted by the magician's assistant.
Influencing, or by various methods, infiltration, propaganda methods, direct contacts, doesn't really matter. I will describe them later. Of various areas where public opinion is formulated or shaped: religion, educational system, social life, administration, law enforcement system, military, of course, and labor and employer relations, economy. Okay? 5 areas. I will not write them down because we'll not have enough space. Sometimes when I describe all the methods, students ask me a question: are you sure this is the result of the Soviet influence? Not necessarily. You see, the tactic of subversion about which I'm talking is similar to the martial art, the Japanese martial art. If some of you are familiar with that tactic, probably you will remember that if an enemy is bigger and heavier than yourself, it would be very painful to resist his direct strike. If a heavier person wants to strike me in the face, it would be very naive and counterproductive to stop his blow. The Chinese and Japanese judo art tells us what to do. First, to avoid the strike, then to grab the fist and continue his movement in the direction where it was before, right? Until the enemy crashes in the wall. You see? So, what happens here? The target country obviously does something wrong. If it's a free democratic society, there are many different movements within the society. There obviously, in every society, there are people who are against this society. They may be simple criminals, ideologically in disagreement with the state policy, conscientious enemies, simply psychotic personalities who are against anything, right? And finally, there are a small group of agents of a foreign nation, bought, subverted, recruited, right? The moment all these movements will be directed in one direction, right? This is the time to catch that movement and to continue it until the movement forces the whole society into collapse, into crisis, right? So that's exactly the martial art tactic. We don't stop an enemy. We let him go. We help him to go in the direction we want them to go. Okay? So, on the stage of demoralization, obviously there are tendencies in each society, in each country, which are going to opposite direction from the basic moral values and principles. To take advantage of these movements, to capitalize on them, is the main purpose of the originator of subversion. So we have religion, we have education, we have social life, we have power structure, we have labor relations, unions, and finally we have law and order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? These are the areas of application of subversion. What it means exactly? In case of religion, destroy it, ridicule it, replace it with various sects, cults, which bring people's attention, faith, whether it is naive, primitive, doesn't really matter. As long as the basically accepted religious dogma is being slowly eroded and taken away from the supreme purpose of religion, to keep people in touch with the supreme being, that serves the purpose. Therefore, replace it, accepted, respected religious organizations with fake organizations. Distract people's attention from the real faith and attract them to various different faiths. Education. Distract them from learning something which is constructive, pragmatic, efficient.
Check this out.
Instead of mathematics, physics, foreign languages, chemistry, teach them history of urban warfare, natural food, home economy, your sexuality, anything, as long as it takes you away.
So the very first subversive thing they went after was education. To say, we're not going to teach you. I was talking to my husband a couple weeks ago, and oftentimes my husband's from Ukraine, and so oftentimes we will get into discussions about like things that he did growing up in, it was the USSR until he was like 12 or so, and then it became like Ukraine because the USSR fell apart. Like how did he grow up in the USSR versus like how I grew up here? And a couple weeks ago I was talking to him about like, you know, school and stuff like that, and he was telling me that in the USSR he basically had to take like electrical engineering and biochemistry when he was in elementary school, and he started learning English at the age of 7. And I was like, you know what I was doing when I was 7? We were doing recess. Like, I was advanced in reading. Like I read several grade levels, like beyond my my classmates and stuff like that. But like we weren't doing biochemistry and electrical engineering and learning a foreign language in elementary school. We were dicking around with other things. And so and even like and that was back in the day before all this equity bullshit got into schools. So think about it now. Like I just did so I did the write-up on the Black Lives Matter manual, the 2024 Black Lives Matter in School manual. And one of the things it says, excuse me, one of the things it says is to teach anti-racist math and science and teach social justice all throughout math and science classes. That's literally in the manual. And so, I mean, think about how this is playing out. Our schools are completely effed. I did an expose on a school the other day called the June Jordan School of Equity. You can find this all on the Substack, carlin.substack.com. And the June Jordan School of Equity is a public school in the San Francisco Unified School District that is entirely based on equity and social justice. 100% based on equity and social justice. Well, we got a hold of their accountability reports. And does anyone want to take a guess? Does anyone want to take a guess at what percentage of students in the June Jordan School of Equity in San Francisco, taxpayer-funded school, were proficient in math? How many? What percent of students? And don't give the answer if you know it. We've got new people here. Like I want people to actually guess. So like if you didn't see this story, what percent of the students in the June Jordan School of Equity are proficient in math, do you think? 0%. 0%. 0. They literally have 0% proficiency in math. I have their school equity report on the Substack. 3% of them are proficient in science. 10% of them 10 know how to read. 10% of the students in this school know how to read. That's what equity in education is going to get you. And our educational system has been seeped entirely in equity for at least 15 effing years. And we're about to graduate the first class that has had anti-racist math since they've been in kindergarten, that has had anti-racist science, that has had social justice taught in every single subject. I wonder how that's going to go for us.
Okay. Social life. Replace traditionally established institutions and organizations with fake organizations. Take away the initiative from people. Take away the responsibility from naturally established links between individuals, group of individuals, and society at large, and replace them with artificially, bureaucratically controlled bodies. Instead of social life and friendship between neighbors, establish social workers institutions. People who are on payroll of whom? Society? No, bureaucracy. The main concern of social workers is not your family, not you, not social relations between groups of people. The main concern is to get the paycheck from the government. What will be the result of their social work doesn't really matter. They can develop all kind of concepts to show to the government and to the people that they're useful. Okay, away from the natural links, power structure. Okay. The natural bodies of administration, which are traditionally either elected by people at large or appointed by elected leaders of society, are being actively substituted by artificial bodies. The bodies of people, groups of people whom nobody elected, never. As a matter of fact, most of the people don't like them at all, and yet they exist. One of such group is media. Who elected them?
No one.
How come?
No one, Yuri.
They have so much power, almost monopolistic power on your mind. They can rape your mind. But who elected them? How come they are They have a nerve to decide what is good and what is bad for the elected by you president and his administration. Who the hell are they? Spiro Agnew, who was hated by the liberal left, called them a bunch of enfeebled snobs. And that's exactly what they are. They think they know. They don't. The level of mediocrity in a big establishment like New York Times, Los Angeles Times, major television network, you don't have to be excellent journalist. You have to be exactly a mediocre journalist. That's easier to survive. There's no competition anymore.
True.
You have your good, nice income, $100,000 a year. That's it. Whether you are better or worse.
So for people who don't know me, I'm an organizational psychologist by training. So I used to be one of those people that would go in and do corporate training and stuff like that. And I focus mostly on communication and mindfulness and stress reduction and stuff like that. I bring this up because one of the things that I've always tried to explain to people, and people don't understand this, is that organizations don't want high-performing employees. They don't want low-performing employees either, but they don't want high-performing employees. Because high-performing employees cause problems. And what I mean by that is high-performing employees will look at something and they'll say, we've been doing this thing this way forever, and I don't think it's as efficient as it could be, and can we please change it? Well, when they try to change things, they cause problems because then new people have to learn new things, and everyone gets freaked out, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then it causes all... And it's not that the high-performing employee was wrong. It's not that the high-performing employee was wrong. It's that the implications of them being right are that they've upset the apple cart for everyone. And even if their suggestion is correct, like, it still is like it creates a headache for leadership. So leadership tends not to like high-performing employees. What they want is mediocre employees who are going to do what they are told. That's who's successful in organizations. That's who's successful in the government. Mediocre employees who are going to do what they are told, who are not going to think outside of the box, who are not going to ask questions, who are not going to make suggestions, because those are the people that are easier to deal with.
Doesn't really matter anymore. As soon as you're smiling to the camera.
Cool. That's great, Nick. Thank you.
That's it. No more competition. Power structure slowly is eroded by the bodies and groups of people who do not have neither qualification nor the will of people to keep them in power, and yet they do have power. Okay. Together with that, there is another process. Law enforcement, law and order organization and structure is being eroded. For the last 20, 25 years, if you see old movies and new movies, you can see that in new movies, a policeman, an officer of the United States Army looks dumb, angry, psychotic, paranoid. A criminal looks nice, kind of, well, he smokes hash and shoots the whatever drug, but basically he's a nice human being. He's creative. And he's unproductive only because society oppresses him. Whereby a general of Pentagon is always, by definition, a dumb, a war maniac. A policeman is a pig, rude policeman. He abuses his power. You know? A generalization like that. The hatred, the mistrust to the people who are supposed to protect you and enforce law and order. Moral relativity. The Angelo Buono process lasted 2 years in Los Angeles. Relativity. The Angelo Buono process lasted 2 years in Los Angeles. And yet there are still some lawyers who say, look, he's a nice character, as a matter of fact. There was some witness who said, also a criminal, who said, well, he's a nice guy. I asked him one day to burn a house of my enemy, and he wouldn't do it. He's a nice fella. Erosion. A slow substitution of basic moral principles, whereby a criminal is not a criminal, actually. He's a defendant. Even if his guilt is proven, there is still a doubt. to kill or not to kill, to be or not to be. Thou shalt not kill, yes. But this line.
Question: if the socialists managed to achieve their utopia, how would they make everyone non-binary? Would it be physical or psychological? Well, first of all, they're already making everyone non-binary. They're already doing this. There are school districts in which that upwards of 40% of students identify as genderqueer, gender fluid, or gender non-binary. They're already doing this through the schools. Everything they do is through public education. It is all psychological. It is not physical. They are teaching kids that gender is fluid from the time they're 5 years old. Drag Queen Story Hour wasn't about sex, guys. Again, conservatives missing the ball entirely. It wasn't about sex. Drag Queen Story Hour is about teaching children that gender is performative. It's about teaching children that gender is a performance. Because if it's a performance, it's not real, and you can change it at any time, and it's fluid at any time. That's what Drag Queen Story Hour is about. Nothing else. So they're already doing this. And it's probably going to be pretty far along by the time we get to the Marxist utopia. They're not waiting. Channel 007 says exposing them to ideas. Well, it's not just exposing them to ideas. Ideas are not inherently the problem. It's they're exposed to bad ideas and then taught that those ideas are the only reality that exists. And because our school system sucks so badly, they aren't taught how to critically think. So they don't know. They don't even know how to pick apart the ideas and kind of work their way through them to say, is this a good idea? No, they're said, this is the way the world works. This is the only way the world works. And they don't think outside of that.
And may not necessarily be applicable to a murderer. Thou shalt not murder. That should be the presumption, not that thou shalt not kill. Okay, labor relations. At this stage, within 15 to 20 years, we destroy the traditionally established links of bargaining between employer and employee. The classical Marxist-Leninist theory of natural exchange of goods. A person A has 5 sacks of grain and person B has 5 pairs of shoes. And the natural exchange without money is when they bargain between each other. And only with the introduction of the third force, C, an entirely third foreign stranger who says, no, don't give him 5 sacks of grain, give it to me. And you give me your 5 pairs of shoes, and I will distribute it accordingly. So that the economy will go. This is the death of natural exchange, death of natural bargaining. Well, trade unions were established 100 years ago. The objective was to improve working conditions and to protect the rights of workers from those employers who were abusing their right because they had more money. Objectively, at that time, initially, the trade union movement did work. What we see now is that the bargaining process is no longer resulting in the compromise, which is leading objectively to betterment of working conditions and increase of salary. What we see is that after each prolonged strike, the workers lose. Even if they have 10% increase of their salaries, they cannot catch up due to inflation and due to missed time. More than that, millions of people suffer from that strike because economy now is interdependent. It's intertwined like one body. If previously steel workers, say 100 years ago, could strike and nobody would suffer, now it's impossible anymore. If a garbage collector strikes today, the rest of the multi-million city is stinking. I mean, there's no more service. In Quebec, for example, we had the electricians who were on strike in the middle of winter. You can freeze your bottom, and they still were on strike. Did they catch up with the salary? No, they lost. Who benefited? The leaders of trade unions. What is the motivation for strike? Improving of workers' condition? No, obviously it's not. Then what is it? Ideology. To prove to these capitalists. And the obedient horde of workers, like sheep, follow these people. And they cannot disobey. Why? Because if they do, you know what happens to them? Pickets, murders, shooting truck drivers by picketers. In Montreal, for example, I saw with my own eyes when I was correspondent of CBC International, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, when the workers of aircraft factory destroyed computers and the equipment in the factory. And the administration employed strike breakers. Their cars were turned upside down and burned. Their houses were burned. Their kids were intimidated. And some victims were there. Of that you can be sure. Why? To improve conditions of workers? No. Ideology. Okay, so this is what happens basically. It may or may not happen without the help of the Soviet Union. But the natural tendencies are being greatly taken advantage of and capitalized by the Soviet propaganda systems. How? Whenever trade union strikes, we have influx of propaganda.
Kyle asks, where was it the socialists said your private thoughts and ideas are constituting bourgeois private property? It was, I do need to make a clip of this. It was in a Socialism Saturday that we did about the propertied regime or something like that. So it was in a presentation on a channel called Red May. It's one of their newer presentations. It's like, I think like the regime of property, their propertied regime, where it was a fascinating presentation. Sadly, the Groypers disrupted it and raided my channel partway through it. But it was actually like a really fascinating presentation about like all of the different nuances of what they consider to be private property. But you're right, Kyle. I do need to make a clip of that. And it's been on my to-do list for a while. I just haven't gone back and done it.
Propaganda, mass media, ideological dissemination, the workers' right, and we repeat it like parrots. Yes, workers' right. Whose rights? Workers? No. The only freedom of worker to sell his labor according to his own desire and will is taken away from him. By whom? By trade union boss. Unlimited power is given. Responsibility. I want to sell my labor not for $2.50 an hour, but for $2. I don't have right. My freedom is denied to me. I know that if I sell my work for $2 an hour, not for $3 an hour, I will compete better with the other guy who is lazy and more greedy. I don't need $3. I need only $2. No, I was made to believe by media, by business, by advertising agencies that I need more and more and more. Have you ever heard any advertising on TV to consume less? No. No way. Whether you need a six-cylinder car or not, you have to buy it. And hurry up. When I was driving here on the local radio station, an excited announcer said, "You hurry up, rush and save, save, save. There is a pantyhose sale." Save by buying more. Of course. It would be too naive to expect that KGB makes that advertising agency to do such a crazy commercial. No, of course not. But what we did when I was working for Novosti Press, we would snow plow editorial offices, student organizations, religious groups with literature of class struggle.
Yep.
If not directly Marxist-Leninist propaganda, then a propaganda of the legitimate aspirations of working class.
Listen. I've said this to people over and over and over again. People don't understand how socialists gain power in this country. They think it's through protesting. It's not. It's through publishing. There are dozens of socialist-specific book publishers in this country that are publishing books that you've heard of, but you don't know they're coming from strictly socialist book publishers. There are socialist bookstores in every single major city in America, specifically socialist, far leftist bookstores. There are classes that are probably going on in your kid's school right now where they teach them how to make zines. Z-I-N-E-S. Zines. Zines used to be a big thing in the 90s, but they're also another thing for they're another term for what socialists use for propaganda. Not only do they make a metric ton of zines, they will teach your kids to make zines in school. I have zines that people have sent me from the Austin, Texas schools in particular, where they literally have classes where they make these fucking zines. They do flyers. They do handouts. I have an entire box of propaganda that I've gotten when I went undercover from socialist events. Just like there's so much literature that you come back with, and I made sure to pick up everything because I wanted to look at it and spend some time with it. How socialists gain their power is through publishing. That's how they do it. Because the most powerful people in any social system are the ones who are expressive. And if they're flooding the market with books, and by the way, who are librarians? Oh, they're also socialists. We know that now the American Library Association literally is run by a Marxist, literally a self-professed Marxist that I ran into at the socialism conference. They're publishing all these books. The books are going into libraries. The books are going into schools. They're doing all this other stuff to get their propaganda out there. The most powerful people in any social system are the ones who are expressive. If they are the ones writing all the books, then what do you think is going to happen? This is why the leaders of the left are not George Soros. They're not Bill Gates. They're not any of these people. The left hates those people. The real leaders of the left are the writers, the authors, the academics that are coming up with these ideas, the people that are writing the books and the essays and all the things, and the activists that are getting that stuff out there. That's who the heroes on the left are. The academics, the authors, and the activists. And they're people that most of you have never heard of. My channel knows who they are because we cover them all the time. If you want to see who they are, we will always show them to you on Socialism Saturday, which is on Saturdays at 6 p.m., where we watch the real socialist activist. But no one else in the country is doing what I'm doing in tracking these people. Most of you don't know who their leaders are. You really don't.
Life, equality, mind you. President Kennedy once said, we will make America to believe that people are born equal. Are people born equal? Is there any mentioning in the Bible or any other holy scripture in any religion, if you don't believe me, go to the library and check it. There is not a single word about equality, just the opposite. By your deeds, God will judge you. What you do is important, the merit of your personality. You cannot legislate equality. If you want to be equal, you have to be equal. You have to deserve it. And yet we build our society on the principle of equality. We say people are equal. We know it is false. It's a lie. Some people are tall and stupid. Others are short, bold, and clever.
Ain't it the truth? Ain't it the truth?
If we make them equal by force, if we put the principle of equality in the basis of our socio-political structure, it's the same thing as building a house on sand. Sooner or later, it will collapse, and that's exactly what happens. And we, as Soviet propaganda makers, are trying to push you in the direction which you go yourself. Equality, yes, equality. People are equal. Land of equal opportunities. Is it true or not? Think about it. Equal opportunities. Should there be equal opportunities? For me and for a lazy bastard who come here from some other country and immediately registers as a welfare recipient benefits? I never received a single no, sorry, I did receive once. But I never applied for welfare. For the 13 years, I took any job. Security guard, journalist, taxi driver, anything. Well, I was restless, but some people don't like it. They immediately. So why should we have equal opportunities? Why?
The equal opportunity to excel.
Equal opportunity in equal circumstances, yes, but you know people are different. To excel, yes, provided we reach the same level of excellency, perfection, which is hypothetical, distant future. Yes, maybe. But we know perfectly well that even with the best intentions, people could not.
No, he died,
be equal.
sadly. I wish I could have met him. That would have been rad.
Why should we have equality in the, say, legal system? Myself, I'm considering myself a law-abiding citizen, and a person who comes here to rob and shoot, say, the United States administration under Carter, imported thousands of Cuban criminals. They were non-criminals, yet they were accepted. Do you think it's fair if myself and my wife from Philippines, who work like a, excuse me, horse as a lab technician in a hospital, should have the same rights as a criminal from Cuba? Why? And yet we repeat as parrots, equality, equality, equality. And the Soviet propaganda system helps us to believe that equality is something which is desirable. Democracy, as it was established by fathers of this country, of this system in the last century, is not equality. It's the system where different people, unequal people, have a chance to survive and help each other in constant competition, in constant perfection, not inequality, which is superimposed from a godfather or a nice person in Washington, D.C. And the absolute equality exists in Soviet Union, quote-unquote equality. Everybody is equal in dirt, except some people are more equal than the others in Politburo. So, the moment you bring a country to the point of almost total demoralization, when nothing works.
I just destroyed my slime and hit myself in the face with my own microphone. Slime subversion! Slime subversion! Slime subversion! My slime subverted me. All right. Sorry for the interruption. My apologies. I'm going to play with a different slime now.
Anymore. When you are not sure whether it is right or wrong, good and bad, but there's no division between evil and good. When even the leaders of church sometimes say, well, violence for the sake of justice, especially social justice, is justified in the countries like Nicaragua, El Salvador, well, maybe Rhodesia.
Let's see. I got a Rumble rant from Channel 007, and thank you for all the Rumble rants today. I wonder if there's any relationship between mass psychosis and whatever the academics and generals are doing. No. Don't make this mistake, guys. Do not make the mistake of saying they're just all crazy. They're all mentally ill. They're all crazy. That's a conservative excuse. Again, they're not mentally ill. They're not. I wrote about this. You can go to my Substack, which is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. I wrote about this. Maybe it's time to repost this article because I think I have a lot of new people since I wrote it. But I have this series on the Substack called The Woke Mind, where I break down the psychology of the left and I explain why they do what they do. And it is not mental illness. So there is some evidence to say that like people who are on the social justice left are more prone to be like narcissists, like real narcissists, like narcissistic personality disorder. There is some evidence to say that. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but what I am suggesting is that it's not mental illness that's doing this. It is that they have completely different values. They have different values. Different people are different, guys. Just because someone likes something that you don't like doesn't mean they are mentally ill. And the reason I'm making this like a really strong point is because every single time that you guys say these people are mentally ill, you're just deflecting from what actually is going on. And you're diminishing the power that that you believe they have. Because if socialists are just mentally ill, and they've taken over every institution, then all of you let a bunch of mentally ill people take over the country. You all lost to a bunch of mentally ill people. Did you all? Why can't, if they're just mentally ill and you're not, then why are you losing to them? Why are you losing to them so badly? The answer is because they're not mentally ill. They just have different values than you do. You value individualism. They value collectivism. Just because you don't like collectivism doesn't mean you can't understand that there might be people out there that value collectivism. They believe your ideas are bad, in part because they haven't been well articulated, but also in part because there's willful ignorance, whatever it is. They believe your ideas are bad, just like you believe their ideas are bad. They believe you're mentally ill, just like you believe they're mentally ill. But in this case, they're the ones that are actually winning. So can we please stop dismissing them and disregarding them as mentally ill? Because if all you're doing is saying, oh, they're just crazy, they'll learn when they grow up. No. That's not it. They're not going to learn because they've been indoctrinated in school since they were 5 years old. And so if you're waiting for them to grow out of this stage, you're going to be waiting a long ass time. And we're going to get to the Marxist utopia before anything, before they start growing out of it, because they've been indoctrinated their entire lives. They don't know any differently. No. This is not correct either. This is not correct either. They're not shills. They are not shills. They believe every single thing that they say. They believe it. Again, you guys have got to stop being so fucking dismissive. How in God's name, given the amount of socialism that we watched, can you guys come here and say, they're just mentally ill, they're just shills? Every single time you do this, you give them more power, guys. Every single time you do this, you are allowing them to win. Channel 007 says, I'm sorry I associate mass psychosis to brainwashing. Sorry for the confusion. And you gave me an opportunity to make a good point, so I appreciate that. All right, let's continue.
Yeah. And we listen to them and
hang
say,
on. I think I had a super chat from Rottweiler. I think I did. Sorry, Rottweiler. I wonder if there's a Mao China defector like Bezmenov was from the USSR because of how Mao used the education system, which is what we're seeing now. I mean, we've got Lily Tang Williams. Lily Tang Williams can tell you all about it. Yeah, Z Van Fleet can tell you all about it. So we kind of do. Not enough people are listening, but we kind of do. Aaron McIntyre is a moron who is beneath me, and I would never lower myself to speak to Aaron McIntyre at all, because I personally do not think that Aaron McIntyre is smart enough to understand what I'm doing. And really, this would be like me, like I'm teaching PhD level classes here, man. Aaron McIntyre's fucking around in like 5th grade. I mean, if he wants to stay in 5th grade forever, that's fine. He certainly has the intellect for it. But I'm not coming down from my PhD level classes to fuck around in 5th grade with Aaron McIntyre. Absolutely not. No.
probably it's true. Is it true? No, it is not true. Violence is not justified, especially for the sake of quote-unquote social justice introduced by Marxist-Leninism. That is my former colleagues from Novosti Press Agency. Okay, so we reached that point. The next step is destabilization.
Destabilization, like mine. That's like my framework.
Again, this word says for itself what it is. To destabilize all the relations, all the accepted institutions and organizations in a country of your enemy. How you do it? You don't have to send a battalion of KGB agents to blow up bridges. No, you let them do it themselves. The area of application is, again, It's narrower now, not like the previous case. The overt legitimate actions of the KGB in this case would be hardly noticeable. There is no crime if a professor who recently went to USSR introduces a course of Marxism-Leninism in a Californian college, for example. Nobody is going to come to his doorstep and say, okay, mister, come, you are under arrest. No, it's not a crime. It's not even considered a moral crime against your country. So the area of application here is narrowing down to economy, again, labor relations, right? To law and order, plus military. And economy, law and order. Yes, and again, the media, but wider scope, little bit different. I'll explain later. Okay, basically 3 areas. Economy. The radicalization of bargaining process. If on that stage we still could achieve, theoretically, some positive compromise between the negotiating sides with say, arbitrary, introduction of arbitrary judges, a third side, objectively judging the demands of both sides. Here, it's radicalization. On the stage of destabilization, we cannot come to compromise even within a family. The husband and wife couldn't figure out which is better. Husband wants his kids to eat at the table, and wife wants a child to roam around the room and drop food all over the floor. They cannot come to compromise unless they start a fight. It's impossible to reach a compromise, constructive compromise between neighbors. Some people say, I don't like you to watering your lawn at that time because exactly at that time I'm walking my dog and he's getting nervous. He cannot pass his bowels, you know. So they cannot compromise. They go to a civil court or something like that. Radicalization of human relations. No more.
Let me explain to you why this is, Stephen. Stephen says, and I'm not meaning to pick on you, but this is something, again, this is another thing conservatives don't understand. Stephen says, I rely on statistics in my arguments. That's your first mistake. The socialists use emotion and comedy really well and win the room over. They are not stupid. They understand how to physically win people over. Let me explain to you why that is. If you are only ever presenting data as an argument, you are going to lose to emotion every single time. The way the brain works, and I'm a psychologist, I went and got a PhD in psychology just to make sure. The best way to think of how the brain works is to think of it in 3 different parts. Number 1 is the old brain. That was the very first part of the brain to develop. You might hear about it as like the reptilian brain or something like that. Number 2 is the midbrain, the next part of the brain to develop after the old brain. Number 3 is the new brain, which is the last part of the brain to develop. It's much more complicated than this. I'm making it as simple as possible to make an analogy, acknowledging that it's much more complicated than I just explained it, but we're not doing a whole class in neuropsychology today. So think of the old brain as your survival mechanism. The things that the old brain are interested in are food, shelter, and food, survival, and sex. And that's it. That is all the old brain is interested in. Food, survival, sex. That's why every commercial you see on TV either involves food, survival, or sex. You want to eat this food. Doesn't this food look amazing? Wouldn't this food be good? You want to fuck this girl. You want to fuck this guy, whatever the thing. Or if you don't get this product, you will literally die. The safety of your family is on the line. You better buy this new car because this new car will keep you safe. Every single commercial you see on TV, food, survival, or sex. That is because that is the science to appealing to the old brain, the instinctual brain. And every single time something related to food, survival, or sex pops into our experience, we perk up and pay attention to it like a dog that has just seen a bone. Okay? The next part of the brain is the midbrain. The midbrain is where you process all of your emotion. Whether or not you're feeling happy or sad or excited or depressed or any of those things, whether or not you're in love or you hate someone, etc., etc., etc. All of this takes place in the midbrain, which is a subconscious part of our brain. We're not conscious of what it's doing. We're also not conscious of the old brain. Both of those parts in the brain constantly operate in the background. They're just scanning our environment, looking for things. We aren't aware of the things that they're doing. The reason I bring this up and that it's important is because the midbrain, where we process all of our emotional reactions, is constantly scanning our environment and taking in information and then delivering us like gut instincts or hunches, things that we know are true. Like when you just walk into a room and you just know something is wrong, that's your midbrain. You don't have any tangible reason to know that something is wrong, right? You just walked into the room. No one's even said anything yet, but you just have that feeling in the pit of your stomach that something is wrong. That is your midbrain scanning everything going on in your environment and saying, bing, 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 something's wrong. We can tell. And delivering you that answer. And that is where you process your emotional reactions. All right. The last part of the brain is the new brain. This is the newest part of the brain to develop. And this is where we process all logic and reason. This is also the only part of the brain that we are conscious of. So we're not conscious of the old brain. We're not conscious of the midbrain. We are conscious of the new brain, where we process logic and reason. And that's what you're talking about when you're talking about statistics. You're talking about appealing to logic and reason. Here's the problem. In terms of decision-making hierarchy, the new brain, where we process all logic and reason, is the weakest part of our decision-making hierarchy. Think of it like an organizational chart, because I was an organizational psychologist. Think of it like an organizational chart, okay? Like the new brain is like a director level in the organization. They can make some decisions, but not a lot. The midbrain is like the vice president in the organization. The midbrain, where we process all emotion, is the vice president, so they can make more decisions than the new brain can, right? And then the old brain is like the CEO. The old brain is like the buck stops with the old brain. If something is related to food or survival or sex, that will overrule every other thing, okay? So, the place where human beings process logic and reason is the weakest part of the decision-making hierarchy in our brain. It will always be overruled by emotion. This is why conservative influencers refuse to share the stories about the left that I'm the only one covering that are actually pretty big effing deals, because they get their fee-fees in a bunch when I say I'm not a conservative, I don't support you, I think you're authoritarians. And so conservatives get their fee-fees in a bunch and they go, we're not going to cover your news ever. Well, is that smart? No, it's not smart. It's fucking stupid. It's stupid. They're not covering legitimate news stories that they never would have known about had I not covered them, because I hurt their feelings. Now, that's a hit I'm willing to take, because I'm not willing to talk about how much I think, I'm not willing to not talk about how much I think conservatives suck, right? But you start to see the problem, because you could be presenting the best data in the world and it doesn't make a difference, because you are not appealing to someone's emotion. Human beings make decisions emotionally and then they justify them rationally. So unless people start learning how to appeal to people's emotions, and I am certainly not the best person to teach you that, because I don't give an F anymore, but other people can teach you how to do it. Unless people start appealing to people's emotions, the left's going to win. Not a contest. The left is going to win, and that is reality, and there is nothing you can do about it. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. It applies to every single person on the planet. It applies to you. It applies to your mom. It applies to your wife, your brother, sister, best friend. It applies to your grandma. I don't care. If you are living and breathing, what I just explained applies to you, because that is how our brain is evolved. And people like to fight this. They say, no, I make all my decisions in logic and reason, just like Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro says, facts don't care about your feelings. Before, Ben Shapiro spends months and months and months and months and months shilling for fucking Israel, deeply in his feelings the entire time, because Ben Shapiro is controlled by his feelings just as much as anyone else. And I don't care if he has facts don't care about your feelings pinned to the top of his Twitter profile. It makes no difference at all. So that's why that happens. Well, Styx can come to me if he wants, because Styx started a Twitter beef with me about a year ago and then dragged me on his channel. And I actually felt okay about that because I got a lot of super chats from dragging him just back. So I was kind of fine with that. But no, I don't feel friendly towards Styx. I think Styx simps for conservatives. I think Styx himself is a libertarian, but I think Styx simps for fucking conservatives, and it pisses me off. I think most of Styx's audience, and again, I say this because I had a bunch of them in my feed for a couple days, I think most of Styx's audience are conservatives who believe they're libertarians, but they're not really libertarians. They're just conservatives who believe they're libertarians, who are the most pain in the ass of all libertarian, in my estimation. I hate conservatives who think they're libertarian because they're not. They're conservatives. Stop infesting the libertarians with your conservative authoritarianism bullshit. They're like conservatives who still want like to rule everyone and then they claim they're libertarians. Nah, bro. Nah. That's who Styx panders to. Anyway, let's go back to the presentation.
Compromise. Fight, fight, fight. The normal, traditionally accepted relations are destabilized. The relations between teachers and students in schools and colleges. Fight. The relations between, in economical sphere, between laborers and employers are further radicalized. No more acceptance of the legitimacy of demands of workers. Unlike Japanese, with the theory Z, if you ever heard about it, where the workers are involved in the decision-making process, therefore they don't have moral incentive to fight their bosses. In the United States, it's just the opposite. The harder is the fight, the better. The more heroic they look. When the Greyhound network was on strike recently, the correspondents of local TV networks all over the United States were approaching the strikers and they say, oh yes, we are doing something nice. They look like heroes and they were proud. There was some family, the husband was a bus driver. Now they decided in a protest against the bosses to camp somewhere in the forest. And they were presented to the audience as a heroic, nice people, you see? The violent clashes between passengers, picketers, and the strikers are presented as something normal. 10, 15, 20 years ago, we would be angry, say, why so much hatred? Today we are not. We say, well, commonplace. Radicalization, militarization sometimes. As I explained on that stage, I took a step a little bit further. Shooting people. Okay, law and order now also is pushed into the area where previously people settled their differences peacefully and legitimately. Now we are getting with this court cases in the smallest irrelevant cases. We cannot solve our problems anymore. The society at large becomes more and more antagonistic between individuals, between groups of individuals, and the society at large. The media puts himself in the opposition to the society in general, at large. Separate, alienated. Okay? On that stage, you remember I was talking a couple of hours ago about the sleepers. That's when the students from, say, United States, if they're trained in Lumumba University, or developing nations, that's the students I was dealing with, are being sent back from the Soviet Union here. Or if they were already in the United States, in the country, which is an object of subversion, they spring to action. The sleepers go up. They slept for 15 to 20 years. Now they become leaders of groups, preachers, I don't know, public figures. Prominently, they actively include themselves in a political process. All of a sudden, we see a homosexual. 15 years ago, he did his dirty job and nobody cared. Now he makes it a political issue. A political issue. He demands recognition, respect, human rights, and he rallies a large group of people. And there are violent clashes between him and police, his group and ordinary people, no matter what. It's black against white, yellows against green, doesn't matter where the division line goes. As long as this group come into antagonistic clash, sometimes militantly, sometimes with firearms, that is destabilization process. The sleepers, many of whom are simply KGB agents, become leaders of the process of destabilization. Doesn't mean that Comrade Andropov sends Comrade Ivanov to the United States. The person who takes care is already here. He's a respected citizen of the United States. Sometimes he gets money from various foundations for his legitimate struggle for, I don't know, human rights, women's rights, kid lib, prison lib, whatever. There are sympathetic Americans who donate their money to him. This stabilization process usually leads directly to the process of crisis. In case of developing nations, that's the area where I was active. The process starts when the legitimate bodies of power, the social structure collapse. It cannot function anymore. So instead, we have artificial's body in.
Okay, so this is where I slightly disagree with him in regards to like applying it to what the left is doing now, just slightly. I understand what he's saying in terms of like the Soviet Union stuff, but I want to lay something out for you. So you want to know why? Is anyone confused about why Biden has left the border open for like ever? It's not to replace white people. It's not. I know this is what the gripers love, whatever. Now, it's not that replacing white people won't be an outcome of what's happening. So I'm not actually arguing that point. But the difference in opinion that I have is they're not letting a whole bunch of people in through the southern border to replace white people. That's not what it is. That's an outcome. That's a consequence of what they're doing. That will happen as a result of what they're doing. So I'm not questioning that. I'm saying it's not the motivation. Nope, not more votes for Democrats. That is not the reason either. That is not the reason either. The reason that they're letting a metric ton of people in from the southern border is to cause destabilization in the system. Remember, my 4 goals of the woke left are gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, attack capitalism, usher in their Marxist utopia. We are currently in stage 2 of that, where they are focusing really, 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 really heavily on destabilization. We're going to move into stage 3 of that basically anytime now, in the next 5 years for sure. So what they're focusing really heavily on right now is destabilizing all of our systems. When they're letting people in through the southern border, they are overwhelming government services as a way to destabilize the system. That's the purpose. They are overwhelming government services. This is why all of these Democrat governors who were like, we're a sanctuary city. This is why all these Democratic governors who are sanctuary cities and bragging about it on the news and doing all this stuff, this is why they're all pissed off when Republican governors take the immigrants and they put them in their city, because they're doing it in such quantity that it is destabilizing the system. Now, there are a bunch of other consequences to it as well, and I'm not diminishing those, but I'm just saying that people need to understand that the core intrinsic motivation of what they're doing, yep, this is the Cloward Piven strategy, exactly. Now, this isn't the only destabilizing thing they're doing. This is not the only thing. This is just one example. So this is one example. Gender ideology would be another example. They're actively making the entire population question their gender to the point that they're sterilizing themselves. Critical race theory is another example, taking over the schools as part of that. Like there are many, multiple dozens, hundreds of destabilization efforts, maybe even thousands going on at any given moment, right? So the border is not the only thing. It's just one. Okay? But keep in mind that's what they're doing. And if you want to focus on the other consequences of that, like white replacement, I mean, you get like, okay, I mean, I guess that's a strategy. But the problem is because you aren't focusing on the root cause of the problem, you're never going to be able to fix the problem. You are never going to be. This is for all the gripers who might be secretly watching me right now, because I know you're there. You guys are always there. If you guys are really worried about white replacement, and again, this is not my thing, but I'll speak to it. I don't agree with this, but I'll play it out like I'm doing consulting. If the thing that you guys are worried about the most is white replacement, and you only focus on the symptom, which is white replacement, rather than the core underlying issue, the root issue of what is causing white replacement in the first place, which is the effort to destabilize the system by overwhelming the resources in order to get rid of private property at all, you are never going to be able to fix the white replacement problem until you get to the root cause of what is causing the problem in the first place. So if all you guys want to do is run around and talk about race all day, every day, you're welcome to do it, but you are literally never going to win that battle, because the root cause of what you're worried about is not the thing you think it is, and you're going to end up solving for the wrong problem, and it's not going to work out. They'll never listen to me because I'm not Nick. I don't know. Someone play that clip for Nick, please. Can someone please play that fucking clip for Nick Fuentes? I'm not suggesting his concerns aren't valid. I'm just suggesting there is a bigger picture going on, because he's so hyper-focused on what he's focused on, he's not seeing it accurately. That's all I'm suggesting. And if you really care about the problem of white replacement, you're going to go to the root cause of that problem, which is not that they want to destroy white people, because they don't care about that. The left doesn't care about race. They care about any other topic like more than they care about race. And I know you guys don't believe that because you watch libs of TikTok, which lies to you, but that is fucking reality. So someone please clip that and send that to Nick Fuentes. Thank you. Over on Rumble, I got Channel 007 with the Rumble rant. Says, holy shit, we are in bigger trouble than I thought. Destabilize the country to fight us soon. Exactly. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we're pretty effed. Allison says, are all the different branches of Marxism, queer theorists, CRT, social justice, aware that they have the same goal? Yep. They're all aware of this. They all talk to each other all the time. They talk to each other all the time. That's what the conferences and the events and the meetings. These people have so many goddamn meetings. These people have meetings every single day of the week where they only ever talk to the same people. They all know this. They've all been working towards this for years and years and years and years and years. Allison, why do you think they call it a struggle? The struggle. That's what the struggle is. The struggle is causing the revolution. The struggle is to cause problems. The struggle is to destabilize things so they can replace the systems they don't like with the systems of their own. That's what they mean when they say do the work. Do the work is to destabilize, which is what we're talking about. That's what they mean. This is why everyone needs to learn how to speak socialist. When you speak socialist, you understand this. Come to Socialism Saturday every Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And subscribe to the Substack, Carlin, Karlyn.substack.com. Let's continue.
Injected into society, such as non-elected committees. You remember I was talking about them here. Social workers who are not elected by people, media who are self-appointed rulers of your opinion, some strange groups which claim that they know how to lead society forward. They don't usually. All they care is how to collect donations and sell their own concocted ideology, mixture of religion and ideology. Here, we have all this artificial body claiming power. If the power is denied to them, they take it by force. In case of Iran, for example, all of a sudden we have revolutionary committees. What kind of revolution? There was no revolution yet, and yet they had the committees. They were taking power of judgment. They had the power of execution, they had the power of legislation, and that they had the power of judicial. All of them combined in one person who is half-baked intellectual, sometimes graduated from Harvard University or Berkeley. He comes back to his country and he thinks that he knows the answer to all the social, economical problems. Okay? Crisis is when society cannot function any more productively. It collapses, obviously. That's the word for crisis. So therefore, the population at large is looking for a savior. The religious groups are expecting a messiah to come. The workers say, we have family to feed. Let's have a strong government, maybe socialist government, centralized. When somebody
say this too.
Put the employers on their...
What he's saying is the subverters come in, they cause a lot of problems. Those problems cause people to have pain, and in their pain, they look for a solution to those problems, and magically that just happens to be Marxism. My framework says the same thing. They gain as much power as possible to get into positions of power where they can cause problems. The problems they cause destabilize the system. They blame the destabilization on capitalism, and they say capitalism is the cause of all our problems. And they literally do say this in their presentations. They literally say, I have videos of this, capitalism is the cause of all our problems. Barack Obama gave a speech like 3 months ago where he said, actually, no, less than that, like a month and a half ago. Barack Obama literally gave a speech where he says capitalism is the cause of all the world's problems. He says capitalism specifically. They blame capitalism for all the problems because then they want to usher in their Marxist utopia by saying, how about we try Marxism? You want to try Marxism? Capitalism failed us. How about Marxism? It's exactly the same thing Yuri Bezmenov saying. Channel 7 over on Rumble. DEI is a part of this too. They want a system that is unstable, unsafe, incompetent. Holy shit, my bulb lit up. Well, here's another thing. So DEI, the only phrase that you need to worry about in DEI is equity. Equity is the only thing you need to worry about. Every time you hear DEI, you need to think equity, because equity means Marxism. Every single time you see an equity department in your kid's school, you got to think Marxism. Every single time you see an equity trainer in your workplace, you got to think Marxism. Diversity is not inherently bad, guys. Diversity by itself is not inherently bad. Inclusion by itself is not inherently bad. The problem is when you smash equity between those two things, because equity is the thing causing all the problems. If we had diversity and inclusion, which is just about including people in a wide variety of voices, this wouldn't be a problem, guys. It really wouldn't. The problem comes when you have equity, because equity is about equality of outcomes. Equity is the thing that causes the black employee to get the job when they're not as competent as the white employee. But you have to have equity, you have to have equality of outcomes, you have to have parity of outcomes. And so you give the underqualified black employee the job when you should have given it to the more qualified white employee. That's because of equity. It's not because of diversity, it's not because of inclusion, it's because of equity. That's the problem we need to worry about. Because it's not as though there aren't competent and qualified Black people in the world. Of course there are. It's not as though there aren't competent and qualified women in the world. Of course there are. There's not. It's just as though the problem comes when you're trying to eliminate the disparity in outcome, because some people have different natural inclinations than others. The NBA is full of fully meritocratic Black people. Black people kick white people's ass in basketball every day of the week. The NBA is like not entirely Black, but basically entirely Black, based on meritocracy. They're like, people are inclined to different things. So it wasn't DEI that made the NBA all Black. It was a natural inclination for more Black people to be good at that than white people. Diversity in and of itself is not bad. Inclusion in and of itself is not bad. It is equity that is the problem. Does everyone understand that? You can't outlaw people from believing in Marxism. You cannot outlaw people having bad ideas. We agree with some of the things the Marxists say. We don't agree with a lot of it. But Marxists have good ideas too sometimes. They really do. They don't say everything crazy. So again, it's about what inclusion was always supposed to be, what diversity and inclusion was always supposed to be, was about including a variety of voices with different perspectives so that everyone could put different ideas in there, and the best ideas, just like in the free market, the best ideas bubble up to the top. Marxists are going to have good ideas sometimes. Libertarians are going to have good ideas sometimes. Democrats are going to have good ideas sometimes. Even Republicans are going to have good ideas sometimes. And so if you get everyone in a room and you get them talking to each other, the best ideas in the group, if we are living in a society built on meritocracy, the best ideas, regardless of whether they come from a Black person or a woman or a white person or like a disabled person in a fucking wheelchair, the best ideas are going to bubble up to the top. That's what we want. It is the equity that makes it the problem, because equity says everyone needs to end on the same point. Everyone needs to end at the same goal, and life just doesn't work that way, man. That's the problem.
Place and let us work. We are sick and tired of going to strike and missing overtime and all that stuff. We need some strong man, strong government, a leader, a savior is needed. Population is sick and tired already. And here we are. We have a savior. Either a foreign nation comes in, or the local group of leftists, Marxists, no matter what they call themselves, Sandinista, a reverend or some sort, Bishop Muzurela, like in Zimbabwe, doesn't matter. A savior comes and says, I will lead you. So we have two alternatives here. Civil war and invasion.
We're going to have a civil war. It's going to be great.
See how it goes? Civil war, we know what it is. Lebanon is the best example. The civil war, which was artificially implanted in Lebanon by injection of force of PLO.
By the way,
Palestinian.
The civil war that we're going to have in the United States is not Democrat versus Republican. I know there's a Civil War movie coming out. I know they're going to probably make this argument. We're going to like, and conservatives make this argument all the time, like Civil War, 1776, the Civil War that we're going to have in the United States is not Democrat versus Republican. Does anyone want to guess what the Civil War we're going to have is? What do you think? It's not it's not left versus right. What do you think it is? Well, no, Tim Pool does not understand what I'm about to explain to you. He does not. Tim Pool thinks it's going to be left versus right. It's going to be red versus blue. That's not what the Civil War is going to be. No, this is a throwaway. This is not what it's going to be either. It's not going to be socialists versus the capitalists because most people don't understand that capitalism is their greatest enemy. They have no idea. So it's not going to be that. It's not going to be urban versus rural. That's not what it's going to be. Nope. It's not going to be a war between the classes. Nope. Nope. Not going to be authoritarian versus libertarian. That's not what it's going to be. Not going to be the proletariat versus the bourgeois. That's not, actually, this is the closest answer so far to what I'm thinking. This is actually probably the closest answer. It's not 100% correct, but it's more true than it is false. The civil war that we are going to have in this country is going to be the radical revolutionary socialists versus the government. That's what it is. The radical revolutionary socialists, who, by the way, are armed. They are armed. We've watched presentations where they're talking about arming themselves. They're going to try to overthrow the government. And then the military is going to come out, and it's going to be this whole big thing, but it's going to be the radical revolutionary socialists trying to overthrow the government because they very literally say they want to overthrow the government like all the effing time. They want to overthrow the Constitution. They want to overthrow the Bill of Rights. They want to get rid of all the courts. They want to get rid of the United States Senate. They're going to try to overthrow the government. That's the Civil War. It's not going to be red versus blue because conservatives are way too effing lazy. It's the Red Guard. This is exactly right, Rottweiler. It is the Red Guard. It is Mao's Red Guard versus the current regime. It is the overthrow of the government. Now, I don't know who I would cheer for in this particular scenario because I hate the government. I don't want the government to exist. I'm an anarchist. I do not want the government to exist. So, one could argue that I should be on the side of the radical revolutionary socialists. However, I also don't want the radical revolutionary socialists to control my life. And in trying to overthrow the government, the radical revolutionary socialists are trying to put themselves in the government. So it's not as though the radical revolutionary socialist defeat of the government is going to get rid of the government. It's just going to install the socialist government of the United States. The Red Guard will impose their own socialist government. So we're pretty effed either way. That's what I think is going to happen anyway. Channel 007 says illegals versus us. No, that's not going to be the Civil War either. But I appreciate it.
Organization. Invasion we have in many other countries like Afghanistan. Name any East European country, it was invaded by the Soviet army. But the result is the same. The next stage is normalization. Normalization is a very ironic word, of course. It is borrowed from 1968 situation in Czechoslovakia, when the Soviet propaganda and after them New York Times declared the country is normalized.
Aha! Hang on. Cindy, I'm glad you stuck around and made this point. Cindy is making an excellent point going back to the notion of what I think is going to happen in the Civil War, which is it's going to be the radical revolutionary socialists versus the government. In the long march through the institutions, they got themselves into positions of power within the government. So really think about that. The radical revolutionary socialists who absolutely and unequivocally are going to try to overthrow the government at some point. There is no doubt in my mind this is going to happen. It's just a matter of when. When over the next 25 years is this reality going to manifest itself? I'm guessing probably in the 2030s, maybe closer to 2040 than 2030, maybe around 2035, so maybe about 10 to 15 years maybe. They have spent, what is it? Since like this, like make it a nice round number, say since the 50s, they have spent the last 70 years getting themselves into positions of power in the government. Do you really think that they're not just trying to make the government easier to overthrow? They've got, it's sleeper agents, guys. These are sleeper agents. This is what this is. This is like this is like in that show, The Americans, where the Russian spies were in America and they were just living as like everyday Americans. This is the same exact thing, except it's radical revolutionary socialists in the United States government, and they've just been sitting there waiting to be activated. Or what was that Angelina Jolie movie, Salt? Angelina Jolie, raised in a Soviet, it's a great movie, actually. I really like this movie a lot, actually. But it's Angelina Jolie, raised to be a Soviet spy from the time she's a kid, goes to America, gets placed within an American family when she's a little kid, goes her entire life, goes to the best schools, gets that, what was she, like an FBI agent or something? She was in the FBI. And then one day, her teacher, who she last saw in the Soviet Union when she was like 5 years old, shows up in America, and all of a sudden, decades in, married, has a husband that she loves that she wasn't supposed to marry, so she got in trouble for that. All of a sudden is activated as a Soviet agent. It is exactly the same thing, except it's radical revolutionary socialists in the government. And then we have stupid conservatives like this who no, the socialists have already taken over. No, bro. No, they haven't. No, they haven't. You have no idea what's coming. And it's attitudes like this that are causing it to happen. It's people like this that are causing this to happen. They don't listen.
Into Prague, so there's no more Prague Spring, there's no more violence, normalization. At that stage, the self-appointed rulers of the society don't need any revolution anymore. They don't need any radicalism anymore. So this is the reverse from destabilization. Basically, it is stabilizing the country by force. So all the sleepers and activists and social workers and liberals and homosexuals and professors and Marxists and Leninists are being eliminated physically sometimes. They've done their job already. Okay? They are not needed anymore. The new rulers need stability to exploit the nation, to exploit the country, to take advantages of the victory. Okay? So no more revolutionaries, please. And that's exactly what happens in a number of countries. You remember Bangladesh? This is the crisis in which I was instrumental. First, they had Mujibur Rahman. In 1971, he was the leader of People's Party, Awami League, with mustache like Stalin. He was in Russia many times. In 5 years, he was shot by his former colleagues, Marxists. He fulfilled his function. In Afghanistan, it happened 3 times. First there was Taraki, then there was Amin, now there's Babrak Karmal. They killed each other successively, one after another. The moment he fulfills his duty, the first one demoralized country, the second destabilized, the third one brought it to crisis. Goodbye, comrades. Babrak Karmal comes from Moscow and put him into the seat of power. Same thing.
Hang on, I got another Rumble rant over on Rumble from Channel 007. Thank you again. How do we get Trump to give you a special advisor job and have you educate them about what's going on? I really don't have anywhere to run if this all goes. Tell them. I mean, I don't know, man. I will talk to anyone who wants to listen to me, but it tends to be that conservatives don't want to listen to me. And so, because I tell them things they don't want to hear. So, I mean, best of luck to you. I wish you well. I don't think it's going to work, but hey, go give it a try. Go tell people about what I'm doing and what I'm teaching. That's the best thing you can do.
Thing happened in Grenada recently. Maurice Bishop, Marxist, was killed by Austin, what's his name, General something, who was also a Marxist. Right? So no more revolutions, please. Normalization now. From now on, no more strikes, no more homosexuals, no more women lib, no more kid lib, no more lib, period. Good, solid, democratic, proletarian freedom. That's it. Now, To reverse this process takes enormous effort. When today, United States had to invade Grenada to reverse the process of subversion. Some people say, boy, this is not good, it's not kosher to invade the beautiful country, island of Grenada. Well, why didn't you stop the process here when Grenada was just approached by leftists? Why not to prevent Maurice Bishop to come in power in the first place? Did Grenadians want him? Very questionable. They didn't know who was Maurice Bishop in the first place. He came to power by coup d'etat himself. Okay? No, we let the situation develop further and further and further until the crisis and normalization very soon.
As a reminder, if you want to be subscribed to my channel, I stream Monday through Friday at 5 p.m., Saturdays at 6 p.m. I am very, very, very consistent. If you aren't getting notifications, double check to make sure YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you, because YouTube unsubscribes people from this channel literally every day. I hear about it all the time. So if you want to be subscribed, make sure you are subscribed. Make sure those notifications are on. And just remember, I have a very consistent streaming schedule. So if YouTube isn't suggesting me to you, come visit the channel. I'm usually here. Cindy, I explained exactly and explicitly what it was. It's not about any of this. All the rest of this is made up conservative nonsense. I don't blame you. I blame the people who are teaching you.
And then United States decided to invade country, discovering that the country was absolutely a military base for the Soviet Union. Of course, it's a drastic measure. Of course, it's a pity that Marine Corps had to lose, what, 17 lives. Very bad. Why not to stop the process before it comes to crisis? Oh, no, intellectuals will not let you. It's interference into domestic affairs. They're very careful not to let American administration to interfere in domestic affairs of Latin American countries. They don't mind Soviet Union interfere in these affairs. Okay. So to reverse this process from here, it takes only and always military force. No other force on earth can reverse this process at this point. At this point, it does not take military invasion of the United States Army. It takes strong action, like in Chile, a CIA covert involvement to prevent the savior from outside to come into power and to stabilize country before it erupts into civil war. Country before it erupts into civil war. Okay? Support the right-wing conservative forces. By money, by crooks or love, doesn't matter. Stabilize the country. Don't let the crisis develop into civil war or invasion. Oh no, your liberals will say it's against the law. The Congress will not appropriate money for covert actions of CIA. Why not? Should we wait till the normalization come and Soviet tanks land in Los Angeles airport? Now, at that point, at the point of destabilization, also the process could be reversed. Again, easily than this. No CIA involvement at this point. You know what it takes here? Restriction of some liberties for small groups which are self-declared enemies of the society. As simple as that. Oh no, the media and liberals will tell you this is against the American Constitution. How can we, by force, deny the civil rights to criminals, for example? It's not good. Okay? So we allow them to, okay, if you allow the criminals to have civil rights, go on and bring the country to the crisis. This is a bloodless way to do. Curb the rights. I mean, not to put them in prison. No, I'm not talking about putting all the gays from San Francisco in the concentration camp. Do not allow them to take political force. Do not elect them to the seats of power, whether it is municipality level, state level, or federal level. It has to be beaten in the heads of American voters that a person like that in the seats of power is an enemy. Do not be afraid of this word. It is an enemy. If he's not an enemy here, he will be here. Later on, he will be shot, of course. But at this point, he is an enemy. Okay? You are doing great service by denying him a right. to capitalize on his own crazy ideas and become a powerful man, a man who uses the seat of power. Restriction of certain freedoms and permissiveness at that point would prevent sliding into crisis and probably will return the process of destabilization. To curb unlimited power, monopolistic power of trade unions here at that point would save economy from collapsing. To introduce a law to stop private companies of raping public opinion's mind in the direction of consumerism. No company must have a right to force you into buying more unless you want it. There must be a law. You want to advertise your car? Okay. But not a single mentioning of buying it now and saving money. It must be against the law to force people to consume more. Self-restraint. Previously, before this process started, the self-restraint was the business of church, religion. Because our preachers, the fathers of church, would tell us, material values are good, but it's not the prime function of human being. Because you have to live with something. Obviously, the design for our life is not to consume more deodorants. There must be something greater. If such a complicated instrument as human body was created, obviously there must be some higher purpose for that. And it's very easy to avoid destabilization by denying the greedy companies one little freedom, one little liberty, forcing you into turning yourself into processors of unwanted products and goods. They turn you into machines, like the worm who there's inlet and outlet. So, and how long an average appliance lasts these days? Less than a year. Why? Where's workmanship? Well, we want you to buy more. Okay. Destabilization process could be easily overcome if, as I say, the society, by its own will or after persuasion by the leaders, will come to the idea of self-restraint.
Oh!
It's so
Benjamin just gifted 10 subs to people on the channel. Congratulations to everyone who got a gift membership. Let's see. We got Honest Dog Allison, Bot, Kevin Good, Two Ladies, Reagan, Alexis, A Pilgrim Progressing, Brucey, Clary, and Catherine all got memberships from Benjamin. Congratulations, everyone who picked up a membership today. And thank you, Benjamin, for supporting the channel. I really do appreciate it.
You want to consume more, but you have to. Unless you will come to this stage, when, as we say in Russia, if Sahara Desert ever becomes a communist state, there'll be shortage of sand. So you have to curb your... You have to curb your expectations at this point before it's too late. But no, we don't want to do it. Demoralization process. Again, it's the easiest thing to reverse. First of all, by restricting import of propaganda. The easiest thing to do. Unlimited, unrestrained import of Soviet literature, Soviet journalists. Giving Soviet propaganda and ideological agitators equal time on American TV network. It has to be stopped. And it's easy. They won't be offended, mind it. As a matter of fact, they will respect America more. But when my former colleague Vladimir Posner appears on Nightline and Ted Koppel asks him, well, Vladimir, what do you think about this? And what can he think? He is an instrument of propaganda. He thinks what Comrade Andropov tells him to think.
Yeah.
He's just a nice, articulate mouthpiece.
Hang on. Remember when I started Socialism Saturday and I was still, I had my weird haircut and everything, but I didn't have, like, my evolution from beginning of Socialism Saturday is someone that had kind of like an edgy haircut to someone who has gone full Unabomber. The socialists have made me the Unabomber. Not literally. I'm not gonna make. I'm waiting. I'm not motivated enough to make bombs. FBI. I'm not trying to start any rumors. I'm just saying that watching socialism every day of my life for the past 2 years has made me evolve into the Unabomber in spirit, not in terms of blowing shit up. In spirit.
Of the Soviet subversion system. And Ted Koppel makes you believe that my friend Vladimir Posner thinks the process of demoralization may not have started at all if at that point the country, which is a recipient of subversion, actively, not violently, but actively, prevents importation of foreign ideology. I don't want America to follow the pattern of ancient Japan. You don't have to shoot every foreigner when it approaches the sacred borders of the United States. But when he offers you a junk in the disguise of very shiny something, you have to tell him, no, we have our own junk. If at that point the society is strong, brave, and conscientious enough to stop importation of ideas which are foreign, then the whole chain of events could be prevented. Recently, I've been to the Philippines, and I was shocked how in big cities like Manila, children listen to deafening music. A melodious nation with long traditions of good, nice ethnic music, introduced by Spanish long time ago, maybe 2 centuries, 3 centuries ago, I don't remember how. All of a sudden listen to musical garbage, blasting their radios at full blast, at full volume. Why? In India, I spent many years watching the reactions of Indians walking out of movie theaters after seeing Hollywood production. They couldn't figure out why Americans are so wasteful. They smash their cars, their shiny cars every 5 minutes. How come they shoot each other for $500,000? Is it true that they're so obsessed with sex? Can you imagine showing a movie where each 5 minutes there's a copulation on the screen to a country like India with long tradition of respect to this private matters, or to Pakistan? And United States expect these people to respect you? No way. Oh yes, they will see the movie. They'll pay 5 rupees to see that garbage. But they walk out and will tell their kids, don't respect Americans. Don't be like Americans. See? So, the process of demoralization could be stopped right here, both as an expert and as an import. And that takes one step, one very important thing to do. You don't have to expel all the KGB agents from Washington, D.C. The most difficult and at the same time the simplest answer to the subversion is to start it here and even before.
Yeah, we're totally effed.
By bringing back the society to religion, something that you cannot touch and eat and put on yourself, but something that rules society and makes it move and preserve it. A Soviet scientist, Shafarevich, who has nothing to do with religion, he's a computer scientist, did a very intensive research on the history of socialist countries. He calls socialist or communist any country with a centralized economy and a pyramidal style of power structure.
See, Yuri uses socialist and communist interchangeably as well. And I know, like, we could say, well, socialism is the transitionary mechanism to communism. Okay, fine, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Once we are in socialism, we're going to communism. So we need to just start like drilling down to what really matters and treating them as though they are the same thing, because they are the same thing.
And he discovered, actually he didn't discover it, he just brought to attention of his readers, that civilizations like Mohenjo-Daro in the river Hindus area, like Egypt, like Maya, Incas, like Babylonian culture, collapsed and disappeared from the
Thank
surface
you guys,
of
appreciate it.
the moment they lost religion.
Appreciate it.
As simple as that. They disintegrated. Nobody remembers about them anymore. Well, distantly. So, the ideas are moving society and keeping mankind as a society of human beings, intelligent, moral agents of God. The facts, the truth, the exact knowledge may not. All the sophisticated technology and computers will not prevent society from disintegrating and eventually dying out. Have you ever met a person who would sacrifice his life, freedom, for the truth like that? This is truth. I never met a person who said, this is truth and I'm ready to shoot me. To defend the truth. Right? But millions sacrifice their life, freedom, comfort, everything for things like God, like Jesus Christ. It's an honor. Some martyrs in the Soviet concentration camp died. And they died in peace, unlike those who shouted, "Long live Stalin," knowing perfectly well that he may not live long. Something which is not material moves society and helps it to survive. And the other way around, the moment we turn into 2 by 2 is 4 and make it a guiding principle of our life, our existence, we die. Even though this is true, and this we cannot prove. We only can feel and have faith in it. So the answer to ideological subversion, strangely enough, is very simple. You don't have to shoot people. You don't have to aim missiles and Pershings and cruise missiles at Andropov's headquarters. You simply have to have faith and prevent subversion. In other words, not to be a victim of subversion. Don't try to be a person who in judo is trying to smash your enemy and being caught by your hand. Don't strike like that. Strike with the power of your spirit and moral superiority. If you don't have that power, it's high time to develop it. And that's the only answer. That's it.
Thank you.
Wow. You know, that last bit, I'm going to admit it hit me right in the feels, because I was thinking about like how much I've had to sacrifice to do what I do, which is not an insignificant amount. And I question every single day, like, is this something I even want to do? Is I like, you guys know, I went through a whole existential crisis at the end of the year where I was like, I'm quitting. That's it. I'm done. And I really do. I've had to sacrifice so much to do this. And I pissed off a lot of people by telling truths that people don't want to effing hear. And, you know, that last part where he was like, you know, like talking about how people don't give their life for the truth, but they'll give their life for God. I mean, but we have to start sacrificing and standing up for what is true and what is right. And that's the only way to defeat it. I guess that's just the way it's going to be. I guess that's the way it is. So whatever, I'm going to keep speaking the truth. And no matter how many conservative influencers lie to their audiences on Twitter, I at least will be out there speaking the truth. And I don't have as big a platform as they do, but I've got an okay platform. I reach a bunch of people. And so that's just going to have to be good enough for now. And hopefully the people that I'm able to reach and the people that I'm able to teach and the people that I'm able to show what this really is and explain to it, hopefully you guys will go out and teach people, because that's the whole point of all this. That's why I'm doing all this, guys. I'm not doing it for my health. I'm not doing it for my kids. I don't have kids. I'm doing this to teach as many people as I can about what is going on, in the hopes that you guys will go out and teach other people. And bring them here if you want to. I'm not a good fit for everyone, but bring them here if you want to. But even if you can't bring them here, even if they don't like me and they think I'm a crazy bitch, like, at least you can teach them. They like you. You can teach them. If we don't start telling people what's going on and explaining to people what's going on, we are really effed. And we may be effed anyway. But at least we can go down with a fight, I guess. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. Thank you for hanging out with me. I will be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. And as a reminder, please make sure, if you want to fund the work I'm doing, if you want to give me the time to be able to do this, because that's really what you're buying when you subscribe to my Substack or donate in another way. You're buying my time, guys. You're buying my time and my attention. And you're buying me telling you the truth and showing you what's going on so you can see for yourself things that no one else on the internet is showing you. So if you want to support the work I'm doing and keep me in business and send me to go undercover at a gender ideology event in a couple of months, please sign up on my Substack for $8 a month or $80 a year. There's options to give more if you want to, but those are that's what I prefer, is like $8 a month or $80 a year, like a reoccurring gift of some sort, because that allows me to plan for things and it allows me to know how much money I have coming in, to be able to register for events, to be able to go undercover at stuff and do the journalism that ain't no one else out there doing. And I really do appreciate it, guys. I'm trying to hit $3,000 in new donations in the next month, whether that be through subscriptions on the Substack or one-time gifts. And that's going to send me to this gender ideology conference that is taking place in a couple of months so I can go undercover. There is not a virtual option for this. I actually have to go there and I'm going to record everything and I'm going to report back, but I need your guys' help to get me there. You can make a one-time gift on activelyunwoke.com/support. You can make monthly or annual gifts on my Substack. There's some other options as well, but those are the two that I prefer. And I really do appreciate it, guys. I hope we're able to meet this goal. I think we've made some more progress today. I need to update the thermometer a little bit. That's cool. I want to appreciate everyone that's given so far to this. I really hope I can go. But that's all I have for right now. I will be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern time. Thanks so much, guys. Take care, and we'll see you soon.